that's the indigenous authority. That guy was not just no, he was gone, equating it to like genocide. I was like, do you know the indigenous people get yelled at? Might be a little powwow. There's a disconnect going on.
It was interesting because they clearly were not there.
No.
It was either active or
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call the meeting to order. This is the August 15th regular meeting of the City Council of the City of San Juan Bautista. Welcome everyone. Looks like we have a pretty good group. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Jim, would you lead us?
All right, ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Trish, the roll call, please.
Councilmember Bach.
Here.
Councilmember Freeman.
Here.
Councilmember DeVries.
Here.
Vice Mayor West.
Yes.
Mayor Marciano.
Aye. Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. So now we will open it up for public comment, and this would be limited to items that are not on the regular agenda. So if you have if there's an item that you want to comment on that's on the agenda for tonight, hold those comments to those agenda items. Otherwise, now comments related to items not on the agenda. Do we have any public comment?
Jolene Kotia.
Good evening, Council. Jolene Cosio, 181 Lang Street. For a long time, I had been disturbed that the code enforcement was not taking place regarding the signs across from the apartments on Monterey, right near San Antonio. There were 3 signs there to make sure that the people in the apartments or anybody didn't park too close to San Antonio, because it's really hard to turn left there. And we fought to get those signs up, finally got them up. There's very little enforcement. They kind of stay a little ways back from San Antonio from the first sign, but the 3 signs weren't really working because people were parking on the other side of them and making it hard to see, and there was never seemed to be any tickets given to keep them from doing it. Well, now there's only 2 of the 3 signs there. And I don't know what happened to the 3rd sign. I don't know why nobody's noticed the 3rd sign isn't there, unless it was remeasured and discovered that we didn't need to keep them parking that far back, but I think it was measured in the first place, and there should be 3 signs there, and it should be enforced to keep people parking beyond the 3 signs. If there's not enough parking in that apartment, then we made a mistake. Because they park on both sides of the street and in the apartment. So at any rate, it's a safety hazard to not keep people from parking too close to San Antonio so that you can turn left onto Monterey. Or right, for that matter. If somebody's coming really fast, that could be dangerous. And so I'd like to know what happened with that. And also, about 2 weeks ago, the sign's been missing for about 3 months, by the way. I just haven't turned in anything. I wanted to see if anybody noticed it. On Washington near Lang, there is a blue station wagon, and one of the city workers, I guess the inspector, I think that's who my husband said he saw, putting a little green tag on it 2 weeks ago. Has no plate, was hauled out of the city park lot, whatever that is there on Washington, near the beach, and pulled onto the street and just left there. And so somebody did come by and put a green tag on it, but there are codes, not just city codes, regarding things like that. We can now call a tow truck, it's been 2 weeks, and have that thing hauled off. It's just, code enforcement is just so frustrating in this city. I would really like to see more going on code enforcement, and been something I've been asking for a long time, including when I was on council. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment? Nope, seeing none, we will move right along to consent items. And just for everyone's edification, with public comment items, we can't have a discussion because it's not agendized. So if that was an issue that we wanted to then bring back and have discussion about, we would add it to the agenda at a future meeting. But we can't engage in a discussion because it's not, it has not been agendized. So it's not that we're not listening and we don't care, it's that we cannot, by law, enter into discussion on those items. Thank you. Okay.
I do have code enforcement, by the way. I do have code enforcement, by the way, in my admin report, so
Yeah.
we will cover code enforcement.
Okay, consent items. Do we, anything in there? Caution the spelling of names. I'd appreciate it.
Okay, these are the McKinsey's. I looked through them, I thought I had it all, but I'll check it again.
It's both, it's right most of the time. So I'm just giving it a hard time.
Also, one of them,
After 48 years of having my name misspelled, I could care less. Okay, I'm sorry. Tony, did you have a motion? No, question, sorry.
In the July 18th meeting, Jeanette Hording asked about the sidewalk, and I just went by today, and I see we put up barricades there.
Yes.
And I just wondered,
Today.
was that when you went?
Yes.
Are we going to put a sidewalk back in?
We should take that up in the staff report. Thank you. I think that would be... Which address is this? We'll talk about the staff report.
Right behind the door there.
Oh, okay. Sorry, hold on. Dan had a question or comment?
Yeah, it's as regards 3D, the Dia de los Muertos procession. I had something I wanted to discuss with the council about Dia de los Muertos in general, but maybe I was thinking I could do it there or at, the city council comments at the end. It's just a, question, kind of idea, throw it out there.
Okay. Does it affect the profession or?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it affects it in terms of maybe the city taking advantage of it a little bit better. So now a good time?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
Yeah.
So last year, I don't know, Jim's probably well aware of this. I was going to say, I don't know if anybody knows, but Jim knows, that Hardeen's had a Dia de los Muertos event at the restaurant. That was hugely successful. There's probably 200-300 people there. Face painters, music, culture. It was phenomenal. And have been talking with Marcus ever since then about a concept of expanding this good thing that they have going onto just Washington Street and closing the street and having a Dia de los Muertos evening to kind of piggyback onto what Hardeen's already has going. We could maybe bring even more people to town. That's not my phone, is it? No. We could bring maybe even more people to town, have booth space and so forth. I talked with Jason Williams about it to see if it might be something he'd be interested in taking over. He's kind of busy right now. So, as I said, it's just an idea, a concept. It seems like a no-brainer to me. I'm just looking for opportunities for the city to increase revenue, as you all know.
I think it's a great idea. Their application calls for the closure, at least a rolling closure of Washington at that point. I mean, I don't think it would be any sort of hardship to continue that closure.
Yeah, the creek comes up Washington.
Right.
I know, I drive it.
So, that seems pretty easy to accomplish. So yeah, I guess it's a question of coming up with somebody to be sort of on the
It's exactly that. That's exactly the point.
Marcus is interested in taking on a larger scope.
Well, The way he and I discussed it is that he would be in charge of Hardeen's, the Hardeen's campus, if you will, and then we would find a promoter-type city person to be in charge of, anything that happened on Washington Street. I only went as far as asking Jason Williams, but like I said, he's been kind of busy. So if you think it's worth it, I'll kick it around some more, explore it, and maybe report back.
Yeah, I think that whole event and evening is fantastic.
It is.
So much fun.
I really think Dia de los Muertos could grow into become San Juan Bautista's signature event, because I don't really see a lot of other communities making a big deal about it, or if they do, it's not as great as ours is. And we got this procession, which if you haven't been to it, is so cultural and so awesome. It's colorful, the music, everything. I think, like I said, we could put ourselves on the map in a big way with this thing.
I agree.
So, and everything starts somewhere. So all right, I'll kick it around some more then.
I have a motion and a second, I think. So we can approval of the consent items. Trish?
Councilmember Law?
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman?
Yes.
Councilmember DeVries?
Yes.
Vice Mayor West?
Yes.
Mayor Martina?
Aye.
All members of the council being present, the motion is stated by the mayor for passage unanimously.
The resolution number?
It is 26.
So we have a proclamation. We don't have anyone here from Jacob's Heart, do we? No.
Supposed to be here.
I thought there was a note saying that they did not.
That is just kind of covering information.
Okay, so I'm going to read this. City of San Juan Bautista proclamation honoring Jacob's Heart Children's Cancer Support Services and declaration of Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. Whereas each day, 42 children in the United States are diagnosed with cancer, and more than 40,000 children undergo treatment for cancer each year. And whereas cancer remains the leading cause of death and disease among children, more than asthma, diabetes, cystic fibrosis, congenital anomalies, and AIDS combined. And whereas families of children with cancer in the city of San Juan Bautista receive essential services from Jacob's Heart Children's Cancer Support Services, a local organization that has gained national awards and recognition for improving the quality of life for hundreds of local children with cancer and thousands of family members. And whereas Jacob's Heart holds the memories and honors the legacies of hundreds of children from our local community who have been lost to cancer, ensuring that their precious memories will never be forgotten. And whereas the oncology department at Lucille Packard Children's Hospital at Stanford has worked closely with Jacob's Heart for the past 19 years as a trusted community partner in providing family-centered care that addresses the emotional, practical, and financial struggles of families of children with cancer in San Juan Bautista. And whereas it is important for all San Juan Bautista residents to recognize the impact of pediatric cancer on families within our community and honor the lives of children in our community whose lives have been cut short by cancer. And now, therefore, I, Christopher Margarana, Mayor of the City of San Juan Bautista, do hereby declare September as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month in the City of San Juan Bautista, and do hereby honor Jacob's Heart Children's Cancer Support Services for 19 years of outstanding support to our community, and acknowledge the organization's contributions to Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, honoring children with cancer in our community. Date this day. Thank you very much. We'll do that later. Okay. Treasurer's report.
Chuck, is he? No. He asked me if he didn't make it continue, and he should be here shortly.
Oh, okay, so we'll come back to that. Sheriff's report, I don't think we were expecting a quarterly tonight. Let's see here. There we go. Overall security, do you have any questions on that?
On which?
On the level 1 report?
Not on the report, but I wanted to ask staff and the council and maybe anyone else whether there's any further information about the vandalism which happened again at Valero the other morning. I learned about it like you may have on Facebook. It sounds, bad. Not broken windows, but broken gas pumps and so forth. And then Kathleen Manning actually posted on Facebook, she's the landlord of that property, that the tenant, the Valero guys, almost had it because the amount of vandalism. So my question was, is that something that there should be an expectation for the private security company to see happen, or what can we do?
I'm not sure. I mean, they did observe it after the fact, where they called the sheriff's department about it. I've spoken.
They, the security company?
Yes.
Okay.
So I've spoken to them twice. They contacted the tenant there, and there was some feedback about they thought it was a disgruntled customer. That apparently the station opened about 45 minutes late.
Oh.
More than that, the station was open at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, so they...
A lot of people showed up at 5:30 or a little bit nipped, and...
Yeah, they felt like it was probably an irate customer. But be that as it may, there obviously is an expectation. They're there to observe and report. Where they were specifically at the time that happened, I can't say.
So they
are patrolling at that time.
They are.
Yeah, they monitored that intersection.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things that happen when the private security guys didn't happen to be around.
Yeah.
Okay. That's too bad.
And the station does have security cameras that face down towards pumps, so...
Or they hit, and...
Apparently they didn't have any pertinent footage, but I don't know that should be the case. I don't know if there's...
You can see
investigation.
You can see the cameras in the daytime, They might not be working well at night,
The security system, they monitor that intersection, and they go around there, so they don't know what you do,
Yeah, my wife leaves for work quite early, and she sees them regularly. And I see them, I tend to stay up fairly late, and I see them driving around town.
You do?
I do, yeah, with some regularity.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, there was a lot of speculation online about, and you took quite a bit of heat on Facebook for trying to lay out some of the numbers. And maybe for the audience, so Valero, there was a bunch of damage done to the pumps, I guess, at the Valero station. There was quite a few comments on Facebook over the last 2 days, questioning why we don't have more coverage or any coverage from the Sheriff's Department, why we don't have where private security is, if they still exist, why we don't have the police department. And maybe this is the time to run through a few of those numbers.
Sure, if you want to.
So we do have a contract with the Sheriff's Department. They provide essentially 42 hours of coverage per week. That contract costs approximately $150,000 or $170,000 a year. Of that, approximately $100,000 is funded by a grant from the federal government. In addition to the sheriff's coverage, we have level 1 security doing overnight patrols between 11 and 7, 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. They're in town the entire time patrolling. Their primary function is to observe and report. There was questions about distributing their phone number. We're really not wanting people to call them to report. We want you to call 911, call the Sheriff's Department, report suspicious activity or criminal activity to the Sheriff's Department. They are the police enforcement agency for the city. The contract with level 1 costs approximately $80,000, $85,000 for that, or $81,000 annually. That represents approximately 1/2 of one additional deputy, which the Sheriff's Department is not able to do. They can only act in full deputies. So we would need to spend another $170,000 approximately to get a second 42 hours of coverage from the Sheriff's Department. The sheriff has talked, Dan and I have spoken to the sheriff about 24/7 coverage. The cost of that is approximately $600,000 per year. They're very willing to do it, but with a total general fund budget of about $1.6 million, that's a significant increase that we need in income that we need to cover that. A little rough numbers, if we were to do a tax assessment, a property tax assessment, that would equate to, oh gosh, I've lost that number. Bear with me one sec. It's,
There's Eric with you.
yeah, right. So that's $600,000 divided by it with the additional homes that are going to be built in the next year or so. That equates to about $860 per household in increased property taxes per year. So that would be one option for us to explore. To go to reconstitute the police department here, in the little bit of research that I've done, speaking to similarly sized cities, the projection was that the startup cost and first year of operation would be approximately $5 million, and then about $1.5 million per year thereafter to operate the police department. So that is essentially doubling the budget, the city's general fund budget from where we are today. That equates to over $3,000 per parcel of additional property taxes if we were to fund it in that manner. So that's just to put it in context for everybody. It's not that, we're all concerned about it. I would say policing is our number 2 issue in town, but it is certainly not an easy question to address and a problem to fix. I don't think. And we're very open to suggestions, but that's sort of where we stand today. Okay. So any questions or comments with the level 1 security?
Yeah, I would like to talk to, or have Roger talk to them about getting at least one of their guards post-certified. Paying more money for that, but it's starting up again. I would say probably at least 2 trucks a night are coming through. And, if we paid them another $10 or $20 an hour for a post-certified guy, he could pay for it in one night. And they have stopped these guys, but they can't give them a ticket.
Right.
All they do is tell them, hey, you're not supposed to be in here.
Yeah.
What I'd like to see is, and the sheriff's not going to do it, because they're coming through here at, I'd say between 12 and 2 o'clock in the morning, and they're either coming down 4th Street or they come in off of Monterey and turn on 1st Street.
Yeah.
And they always use the excuse, oh, my GPS told me, or this or that. And I'd say, you didn't notice the big sign with the red circle in it, but anyhow, I would like to talk to level 1 about him possibly getting one of his guys. And he wouldn't have to work every day. Sure. Once a week.
So I believe you have spoken to him about it, and I don't think
we're exploring it in terms of what it would cost us and so.
Sure. I think I'd love to hear from the city attorney on this question as well, and perhaps
my answer to the first question that I asked JT, that we're going to have to consult our insurance carrier.
That's what I was going to say too.
Yeah.
That's the key to it.
Okay. So it sounds like you guys have a handle on it. Yeah. Then I would say can you guys report back to us then at our next meeting? Okay. Anything else on the level 1 report? Anything from the public? Okay. Moving right along. The fire chief's report.
EMS, there's some other duplication costs.
Yeah. It sounds like the county has they're trying to address that situation, so hopefully we'll know more next month, and we'll probably see that those engines drop.
Which engines are ours?
E14 and 64.
So they're listed on the next page under ours.
Right down there.
Engine 14 is the big.
So we have one in service.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is, I'm sorry, I get this mixed up every single time. 17 is the small Ford F-550?
No, that's 64.
That's 64.
17 is the
big one?
Yeah.
Okay. So 17, we've asked them at the fire committee meeting, we asked them for a little more feedback, and whether we should just sell it.
Assessment of what it would take to bring it up to speed.
Yeah, it sounded like it was more likely something we should probably just sell. And the 64, which is that rescue, the Ford F-550 vehicle, we've reiterated our request for a proposal to make that
Type 6.
they call it Type 6, which would be used for on-road water pumping hose to like wildfire, like we've had along the highway a number of times. So anyway, hopefully we'll see more feedback from them on that. Okay, any questions? Any from the public on the fire chief's report? Moving right along, it looks like we have our esteemed treasurer in the house, so we'll go back to the treasurer's report.
Hi.
Welcome.
I just got off work, so
Are you ready to step
Oh,
up?
yeah, I'm ready.
Shall we go to the library report?
No, I'll go ahead and start. Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. Chuck Iyer, the city treasurer. Just want to make a few general comments. Once again, the general fund to-date change in fund balance was a positive $74,000 as compared to a negative change in fund balance of $36,000 at this time last year. The difference is primarily due to the result of higher sales tax revenue and overall lower expenses in the current year. Once again, the enterprise fund shows a year-to-date a net profit of $12,000 as compared to the prior year loss of $30,000. The difference is due primarily to the combination of higher water utility income and the lower contract cost in the current year. It's very interesting. I'd just like to bring it to the council, the budget versus the actuals. If you have the, and by the way, all this data is on the website, so everybody can look at it if they want to. Okay, just be clear. One of the things I really noticed, I just want to bring it to the council's attention, is sales tax. Generally, we're budgeted for around $50,000, and it came in considerably higher, almost twice that amount. So what it is when they pay the sales tax, it comes out, I believe, Roger, quarterly or so, and we just got it paid early. So it really gave us a bump there. So just want to bring that to the council's attention. And other income, if you notice, transient lodging taxes seem to be down a little bit. I mean, they're up, excuse me, they're up $2,000. That's good news. Also, I noticed, Roger, on the franchise fees, the refuge franchise, it looks like we almost doubled. Was there a reason for that?
It's pretty consistent and probably was maybe a reflection of the payment was...
We didn't book it in last month?
No, it wasn't there because it's consistent. I was going to say, that was probably 2 months.
It looks like 2 months.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So, I mean, the one thing you have to understand about our budget is very fluid. Money comes early, money comes late. It's just interesting how things happen. Like, when we take a look at our take a look at our warrant listings. I imagine that might have opened a few eyes this month. Generally, we're around maybe, Roger would say 120,000, 120,000 a month. If you noticed, one thing about the warrants, there were a lot of things that happened over the last 30 days. And there were, you look at when the checks were run, there's 3 dates. We see around the 3rd, around the 14th, and the 31st got in on this one. And a lot of times that 31st doesn't pop in until, to the next cycle. So like, for instance, you'll see some are paid twice, if you know certain companies. That's because, I guess, the one that came in on 3rd was late, and then the other one got in on the...
They're going to check that some of those are coded the 216-17 budget, and then this,
I see.
About the 17-18 budget.
That's right.
So you'll see a double payment, that it's 2 fiscal years, and we have to close the book out to the warrant.
Okay, I get it. Okay, totally. So, there's a lot of interesting numbers down here. I'm sure there might be a few questions on it. Tony, would you like to start on this one? Because, I'll be honest with you, I have to put my glasses on to read some of these things.
I have no questions. Chuck, you're doing a wonderful job. And as long as we're not over our heads.
No.
But you know me, I say, show me the money.
Right.
That's it.
Well, I just want to comment, there's a lot of things that happened that got paid this month. We had the summer library where it was paid $2,000 here and then $2,000, and that was summer programs, and we had to pay it. And some of the big ones, and also, I just want to say that we've had some really good, I'm trying to say, the city has booked the community hall, and we have really done well there. What you see is a lot of they have to put a $700 deposit down. So when you see $700 a lot, that's getting their deposit back. But every time you see that, and you see that name, that means someone has taken the time to help the city by renting our facility. So that really looks good. There's a lot of line items. I just want to share that with the council. So just a couple of them, I just want to mention to the public and stuff, the drilling is going, well 5, is that correct, Roger? Well 5.
And that's the $22,000?
Yes, and then there's another one, I just want to bring to the attention of the council, it was on the second page, the one for the $12,000, and we purchased a generator, which will actually be used for well 5, and it will actually be used as a backup for a whole, is that right, Roger, a backup for a whole system?
Yes.
So, that was $12,000 is a lot of money, but, we had to buy it, There's another one down there.
That's the earthquake sales.
Yeah, the big one. Well, actually, there were 2. The first one you saw was,
The 12.5 is the earthquake.
no, the first one is the yellow truck we bought for our, Roger, who's the guy, the building inspector.
Nick.
So that was the purchase of the new vehicle. The second, the larger one is the amount for the generator that was bought. So it's a big cost. We have to do it, right? So when I saw the numbers, I went, wow. Then again, you got Samuel Water District. That's an annual fee of $4,300. Once again, you got the SWRCB. That's dues that they charge us to be a part of the membership.
David, do you have any other questions?
And the last one I was going to mention was the KS State Bank. That has to do with our loan for the infrastructure. So, the water meters, I'm sorry, the water meters, we borrowed money to buy the water meters, and we're paying it back over, was it 5 years, Roger? 3 years, okay. So I was just going to ask Roger to throw it out here. Roughly, and some of this money comes back to us. It's, how much did you figure it was? We figured about, what, 60?
Well, just the reimbursement on that back to us, will probably amount to $10,000.
Oh, 10,000 of it, okay.
But like, you'll landscaping treatment, that's all reimbursed back to us.
Anyway, the attorney fees tend to reflect, I think we're having the attorney show up at our planning meeting. There's been stuff going on about the marijuana stuff going on. So anyway, we're still doing good. And it's a lot of cost, but we're fine.
Thank you.
Okay? All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're in public comment.
That is Vet Friends. 1,500 Vet Friends.
Wow. Pet Friends is helping us with
Cats.
yeah.
Feral
What do you
cats.
call it? Animal control, essentially. So that 1,500 will be over an extended period of time. They'll draw off of that over an extended period of time.
That's for neutering, isn't it? And the release is
Essentially.
Neutering them and putting them up for adoption.
Okay. Any other questions?
With the draft of the San Diego County Sheriff's Department, the grant of the contract, is that inclusive of the inventory monthly reports that are seen?
I'm sorry, what's the
The
question?
Sheriff's Department, I know this is absolutely not.
Yes, I'm sorry, why don't you come forward?
It's okay, I'm gonna stand here, sit here.
No, ma'am, I need you to come up to the front and address the council. So some of us can't hear. Yeah, we can't hear you, and we need...
allowed to ask a question, so I was just doing the same thing.
Talk about the sheriff's grant.
Yeah,
Yeah, I understand.
the reason is that he said any questions about the budget.
Yes.
And so I noticed that earlier in the items for the reporting for the different departments, the sheriff's report is missing. So the sheriff is not here. So my question was in that line item for the budget, the contract, is that inclusive for mandatory monthly reports? Because they're not putting up in the contract.
Quarterly reports.
It's a,
No, they're not required to make a monthly, show up and make a monthly report, as I understand it.
Do you have an agreement with the quarterly?
The contract does not call for a monthly report. We've verbally agreed to and ask for a quarterly until they get their new reporting system online, at which point they'll be able to give us, they've agreed to give us, I think monthly, that's my understanding. Once their reporting system comes online, they'll be able to report more frequently, give us more meaningful data.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think the contract did actually specify in-person presentation, but when the mayor and I met with him as a subcommittee, we said, if you just give us a written report, that's fine, unless we have a special request, there's something as events warrant, we'd like you to come in.
Yeah, my understanding of the contract does not require it, but that was the understanding.
Yeah, I have a definite recollection of actually seeing that in it. But anyway, the point is that they agreed to provide us with a written report every month.
Right.
But they are upgrading some kind of system.
Okay, any other questions, public comment on the treasurer's report? Okay, thank you, John. All right, moving right along to the library report. Any questions on the library report? Public comments? No? Moving right along. Roger, the administrative report.
Hey, in Public Works, they're busy with getting some water improvements for 105. And we're out today doing some
Microphone there.
We're out there today doing some pre-evaluation of the San Juan Monster Road and preparatory of the sewer line. And we had to shut down a lot of water mains, and it resulted in some water hammers that are in there and some damage to some of the services, but I think they're addressing them now, and they're working on them still in the field this evening. But by and large, we've got the main valves shut down, and tomorrow we'll be putting in new valves and new clusters for the well number 5.
And well number 5 is the replacement well for Copper Leaf development.
Yes, and that would be the replacement for well number 2.
Did it pass the flow test?
It hasn't been the flow test because they just finished drilling it and they're pumping the mud out, and then as soon as they get that, then they'll flush it and we'll be running the test.
Any idea when that, next week, 2 weeks?
Well, 6 is actually going to be first, so we're going to do first, hopefully the end of this week, beginning of next week. But
And then,
because 6 is the already existing well, so we can just go ahead and
so
do
we'll
that.
flow test that first. And once that flow test is done, what's next first? Or, I'm sorry, we should let you just...
Yeah, and then the next one would be, once we get well number 5 up with and there's no electrical power yet because PG&E hasn't got it, so that's where we're going to be using the 150 kW emergency generator that we purchased and fire that up to run the pump until the power gets there. And then PG&E has given us a deadline of about October for power will be there, but we can handle it in the meantime.
Okay.
And planning?
I was going to tack on something real quick too, though. As you know, we've been working on public works and sort of upgrading systems and getting ready to move everybody into that new building over there. And we do have an extra week this month, the way just August has worked out. So next week we're going to take a real hard look and sort of get our boots dirty, get in there, and actually I created some spreadsheets. We're going to inventory all the vehicles, all the equipment, log the status of all of them, figure out what we might want to get rid of if we're not using it or it's not functional. We're also going to go through the middle part of the building there where it's just miscellaneous storage currently and actually log all the tools we have in there, all the supplies we have, categorize them by department in terms of, streets, water, sewer, stormwater, whatever, and then actually give out open floor plans to all the guys and brainstorm how they want to reorganize it in terms of putting things related to departments in specific places, and then also set up the office. Roger has a truck coming next week with some, desks and chairs, and they actually already have a board table and a few whiteboards in there. So next week we're going to really focus on getting everything set up in there, and then hopefully that'll get us to the point where we can do the new reorganization of the actual department staff and stuff as well. So in terms of my sections, planning staff's been working on several projects that came before the Planning Commission in August, including a request for a conditional use permit for a medical clinic at 301 3rd Street, which was disapproved. A little backstory, that's the one that came to you for a use determination, went back to Planning Commission, was changed so that the use determination part was removed. They basically changed it to have multiple licensed physicians rather than just one, which made it fall pretty clearly into the medical clinic laboratory section of the code. So that went before Planning Commission for a conditional use permit and it was disapproved. And then the other one was a conditional use permit for on-site sales of alcoholic beverages at 106 3rd Street, which is right behind Doña Stairs. And that was one where there was some confusion with the municipal code having on-site sales of alcoholic beverages listed as conditional and permitted. And so when Amy June went in, it was treated as permitted. But personally, I feel like from a planning perspective that sales of alcohol should be conditional, kind of wherever it is. So I asked Sean Fitzharris from Brewery 25, he minded just applying for a conditional use permit. He was open to it. So we put that on the agenda and discussed it, and that was approved.
And so that's the old, I guess what I...
Where the gallery was?
Drug house.
No, Mission Gallery.
Yeah,
They would be really upset at that.
You're in here beating on
well, no, originally,
Hyper and Blanken looks so normal.
So the long-term plan is still to locate the Brewery 25 facility there where they do their own brewing and everything. I think they realized working with the landlord there that it was going to take longer than they wanted, and so their short-term fix was to open up the tasting room in the Mission Gallery. So,
thank you.
I was going to add, I'm happy that they're going to open up in the gallery. I was disappointed that they can't get into the building they want, the drug house, yes, earlier.
Former drug house.
Because we're also, at least I am also receiving complaints on a semi-regular basis about, it's just kind of junky and not very well kept up, and there's a lot of code violations because it's just old and falling down, and it needs to be worked on.
Yes, I would agree.
All it takes is money.
Couple things.
No, he's not.
One thing that was, somebody brought to my attention, the watering of the ballpark. It's been, are those on timers or what? They've been going on and the water was running
The only
on
one's
the
on timer
gutter.
is Veruti, and so the rest are manual. And I did notice they've turned it on again now. I noticed last night and this morning actually that they were running, so hopefully it wasn't on all night, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how long they.
It was? Yeah. Okay.
What's that?
Yeah, evidently it was running all night because it was on last night and this morning.
I got a good soaking in.
And, well, yeah, but the water's running down the gutter.
Yeah.
And,
Didn't even notice.
was the other thing I had. It's something else I wanted to ask right there and I forgot. Okay, go ahead.
Well, on the watering of the ball field, we are going to water it. It's going to get green again.
It was only ever turned off because when the nitrate violation happened, we had to only use water from the reservoir. We shut off well number 2 completely, and so we didn't want to be using the last of our non-nitrate laden water on watering the ball fields. So we wanted to use that as much as we could for human consumption. And then once we had to turn well 2 back on, it just never filtered down to Public Works to start doing it again. So that's why there was the gap between the nitrate violation and now about a month.
That's why it turned all brown, but now it'll get back to green.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it already looks a lot greener almost immediately. It was amazing. Okay, so on to administration. City staff is now pretty much fully utilizing iWork for all the permits and everything. There continue to be small sort of troubleshooting things. One that I just noticed yesterday was that when the APN numbers, because it was a numeric field, every time I put it in 002 whatever, the first 2 zeros would be dropped. So things like that where you had to get them to change it to a text field and then we had to re-enter all of those manually. So I spent an hour today doing that. But that should be up and running now and good to go. So we've been using it for pretty much everything. We also finished just today all of the backlogged open permits. So we'd already gotten Laura to do all the ones in the filing cabinets, and then you've probably seen the ones that are stacked up behind Carmen there. We finally went through and did all of those this last week as well. So now all paper permits are finally into the system, which will allow a lot more. There'll be a lot more searchable in just going through and checking when people want to know what work's been done in the past. So that's good. It took a while, but it's working well.
Yeah, I thought of what I asked. Let me ask you.
Okay.
When he gets done.
Just to elaborate on the water a little bit, I've also been working closely with Roger on this. We've been looking into the next phase, which is these well capacity pump tests. And so I actually went out and spoke and solicited bids from 3 different companies to do those tests, and we've settled on one. And those should hopefully, like I said earlier, should be the end of this week, beginning of next week. And then on to code enforcement. On Friday, I have to update everybody on this just because you've heard about it a few times. On Friday, July 28th, we sent 7 people out to Marentis Court to get that rooster, and we finally got the rooster. So, sigh of relief, I know.
Thank you.
We'd have lots of complaints about this rooster, and people were losing their minds. So anyway, the saga of the Marentis Court rooster is now officially over. On to the parking code enforcement. Nick has been doing that, and when he's not doing building inspections and helping out with Public Works, he's been invaluable with code enforcement. And one of the things he's doing is issuing parking citations. There was a little disconnect because the sheriff also issues parking citations, and the sheriff also issues warnings, which for the last however many months we don't have warnings, and so people would call in and ask why a neighbor had gotten a warning and they hadn't gotten a warning for doing basically the same thing. So we got Carmen to order some warning tickets for Nick, and so now he can do it the same way the sheriff does, just so there's consistency. And I also thought it'd be good for Nick to start sort of summarizing his work with code enforcement so that people can get an idea of what it is, because a few times we've heard, what is it that he does? So I've gotten a table in here, and I think next month I'm actually going to include letters I write as well. This is just Nick's activity, and if you guys think that's helpful, I'll keep doing it. That's just sort of a regular reporting. As I've stressed before, I know Jolene commented earlier about specific cars and specific places. We generally act when we hear about it from somebody or when, someone's out cruising around and they see one of these infractions. We don't have someone dedicated to full-time code enforcement. So if you see something, say something. And I just have to keep saying that. We're generally very responsive once you say something to us about getting, warnings out there and citations and letters. And especially now that we have Nick working on this, I think it'll get even better. So I think that's it.
I don't want to ruin your day, but there's another rooster on between 3rd and 4th on Tuolumne Street.
Okay.
And that sucker moves around.
There's a few more than that.
But the other question I had for Roger was, PG&E says they won't hook up power to that well until October.
No. They won't have power available.
Right. But couldn't we tell them?
Of getting power to the subdivision is.
But couldn't we tell them it's an emergency? We need power to that well?
You're talking about PG&E.
Okay, all right.
That AMBAG has a little pull with PG&E, so you might want to go to AMBAG. That's just for that. We use them for another agency.
That one's probably a little worse. You're not.
Do you have a comment card on this?
We're not quite there. I think we still have page 3. Management department.
We're all familiar with, we're pushing forward with well 5 and 6, and we'll have some results here very shortly. Just to let you know, final design approved, and we've met with the property owners for the dedication of the land. Very positive. Things are going on good, and the subdivision is going to start removing utility poles and underground and facilitate the construction of the first roundabout on 1st Street and San Juan Highway. And that's at the intersection of inside the circle will be probably, we piped in communication, electricity, and water, in case we want to do some landscaping in the future, as well as maybe some type of a silhouetted monument that would facilitate a camera that could record people coming in and out of the city for a license plate reading.
Great, thank you. Okay, any questions for council? John?
No, I've just received a number of, it's the same landlord, so I don't know if we need to get into it, but behind Vertigo is kind of a mess too, so.
I just heard by there today to check on it again, and we do gotta keep pushing them out.
I think that we're actually going to have that down as a discussion item. So course of action to address public nuisances, and maybe we can discuss
great.
During that conversation. Okay, you said there was a public comment?
Is John here?
Hello, council, again. Sorry I shouted out about the cat thing. It just seemed so small, I thought I could just say,
go right ahead.
Pet friends, what's that about? Okay. Nitrates, is the nitrates gone down again?
Still the same.
Still the same. So we're still dealing with that. When you were talking about watering the park and nitrates, I thought maybe there was a change. Whatever happened with the purple valve permit for using recycled water on them?
We're finally getting approval from the Regional Water Quality Control Board to allow.
That's only been, what, 3 years since we completed the project and we're ready to use it? We're finally getting great. So then we can use that.
And then we can fire that thing up, and we have facilities at Abbey Park, at Quick Ridge, and the Lux Library, and the cemetery has put their distribution system in.
Yeah.
What about the church?
This church, the Plaza One?
It'll take a little bit of improvements to put the purple line up from 4th Street across 3rd and up to 2nd Street.
So it doesn't exist, it's uphill. It's something that's uphill.
It's not ready to go, nor is the soccer field, I don't think, is it?
Well, the soccer field's on its own well. They have their own well.
And on the watering on the ballpark, I wasn't out there at midnight, but it was checked at 10:30 p.m. and sometime early in the morning, 6:30 or 7, it was on. So it seems like it was on the whole time. And that goes back to the whole thing of, can't we have our city workers each be responsible for something, so that there's one person responsible for the parks, and you can turn it on in the morning for a couple hours, and then turn it off, or turn it on in the evening for a couple hours, or whatever, because watering all night, as we all know, doesn't work. You need to do it in short spurts to get that grass green again. And then...
that is something that's being addressed.
Yes.
So
Matt alluded to that.
could we possibly put a timer on it? We have new electronic devices that can do this automatically.
It's on the budget, John. Yeah.
We've had them in the past on various watering systems, and I don't know how well it works. I think the library used to have them. And also, code enforcement, it would be, I know we all try to report things when we see them and all that stuff, and administration, when they go out, they see it, and you have Nick now, besides the two of you looking. So we also need our city workers to pay attention and bring it to your attention, because it shouldn't really be just up to the public and you guys. Your city workers should all be responsible for looking, seeing, and doing something about it if they can, or reporting it if they can't. And, I know I go way back in the city, but man, those guys used to drive one block. Oh, weeds to pick up, okay. They would stop, they would do it. And that hasn't been happening, and the reason we brought city workers back into the city, hate to bring up again when I was on council, but Tony was there too, we brought back our city workers because they were farmed out to a company that wasn't doing the job. We brought them back and it was working real well at first. But some kind of disconnect, as we call it sometimes, has happened, and the city workers are not jumping out of their trucks and taking care of stuff when they see it.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any questions further from council? Okay, let's move right along. City council committee report. John, there, anything?
Strategic Planning Committee didn't have a quorum last month, so there's not really anything to report there.
Okay.
Do we go into AMBAG and all that stuff here, or that's it?
Any reports that you have?
Okay, so at the AMBAG meeting last week, the main point of emphasis was on picking out the roads on the SB1 sales tax. The new point of emphasis was that CTC, California Transportation Commission, had come up with a new deadline of October 16th and such, and so all the picking of the projects has to be done, and we have a list, so it's not a problem, but there's a timetable that we need to follow. It needs to go to AMBAG, and then they send it up to CTC.
Yeah, there was not a COG meeting last month, but, and I don't know if I mentioned this meeting before, but the Regional Surface Transportation Program, which is administered by COG, San Bernardino County gets 10% of what comes in, and Roger hasn't asked for it because it doesn't build up that much, but we do now have $310,000 in that account, and then we have the money that will be coming in this fiscal year, so probably have close to $400,000 to work with. And then the other thing that I'm meeting with Supervisor Patello tomorrow, or Thursday, excuse me, the SB1 funding, and I've got to get this clear. We show a total of $3,398,000 coming to San Benito County. And I don't know where they came up with this breakdown, but San Benito County gets 2.2 million, Hollister gets 835,000, and San Juan Bautista gets 43,000. There's something wrong with that number. We should be getting 10% of that 3 million. I mean, that's been the agreement, and 43,000 is like 1.25% of 3,300,000. So we're going to have, and I have a COG meeting on Thursday, and we're going to have a discussion about that.
Let's hear more after that.
I hope so.
Okay, thank you. We talked about the fire report during the sheriff's, or the fire chief's report, the fire committee meeting. I don't think there was anything beyond that. Governmental didn't really have anything that pertained particularly to San Juan Bautista, other than the library conversation. The county and the city of Hollister are sort of in the preliminary stages of working up a plan to replace the library. They're calling it the Health Center, which is Technology, Education, and Library, I think is what the acronym stands for. And I think the preliminary number was $63 million.
That's correct, yes.
And they've actually asked us to provide someone to be on the advisory committee. So we'll probably be talking to library staff or the library boosters, pardon me? Auxiliary, thank you, sorry, not the boosters. To provide someone to provide feedback for them on that project. So.
Yeah, I don't know if that's such a good idea. You know, our library works because it's voluntary. And in Hollister, the unions won't let there be any volunteers in the libraries, and that's why we have more hours than they do.
Yeah, well, and let me make this clear. We're not talking about rolling our library into their system. That's been very, very clearly stated that we will maintain our library, but they, because it's a county facility and there may be interaction, there hopefully will be interaction between the organizations, they asked for us to participate in whatever small way we can. Dan, do you have anything? Oh, sorry.
LAFCO, two issues on LAFCO. One, LAFCO never had an indemnification clause. So if LAFCO made a decision and somebody sued, they could sue LAFCO, which means you could sue the city. So we now have put in an indemnification clause in it, which it must be fairly good because no one likes it, but it's there. The second thing is LAFCO is spending an inordinate amount of time arguing about sewer outside the city of Hollister for the area south of the city of Hollister, and the Executive Bill Nicholson wanted to have LAFCO do the whole environmental impact study and hire a consultant, and I said, we're not doing that, because we're not paying our share of LAFCO to work out a problem between the city of Hollister and San Benito County. And they agreed with that. They said, yeah, you're outside, you don't agree with that. Okay. That's it.
Dan, do you have anything?
Well, yeah, I've got parks and business development with John, but I see that parks is on for a discussion item, so do you want to talk about parks then? City Park Master Plan, is that what that is? That's what that is? Okay, so I can skip that one. On business development, I've been having discussions with Chairman Hopper, who just walked in, by the way, about this aspect of business development, and he and I agree that we view it as essential to supporting our businesses downtown, and that is to have the Planning Commission, and I'll be happy to help them, identify additional parking opportunities within the city. John Hopper and I were talking about, nooks and crannies, like that lot next to McChain Basque Restaurant that's just ridiculous. I don't know why that thing's chained up. I know there's history. I know it goes back to the Posada, but there's got to be a way to solve that. And then, just other smaller opportunities, and then there may be bigger opportunities too, like the bonfire lot. But regardless of what we're able to accomplish, I think it's safe to say that if tourists and people from Gilroy or Monterey or whatever ever form in their mind The idea that let's not go to San Juan, it's always a hassle to park there. We're going to lose business, we're going to lose customers. And I think studies have shown that the opposite's true, that if you have good ample parking, you're going to attract more people to your downtown. So that's it. And then also on the business, I was talking with Bob Quaid, who's here tonight, I think, with the San Juan Committee Business Association, about doing a survey of their members and downtown merchants regarding the question of how are San Juan Bautista's fairs and festivals to you? What's your experience with those? Does business go up? Does it go down? Are there ways that the fairs and festivals could be improved to increase your business? Because I've had a couple of eye-opening conversations with very valuable local businesses like Tammy at Donya's, who says that like the rib cook-off, her revenue actually goes down. So what the question is, are there things that can be done to modify our fairs and festivals to where it's a win-win for the town, for revenue, for sales, for the people that come to the fairs and festivals, but then also for our local businesses? We can't ignore them. So hopefully Bob's and his crew are going to do a survey like that, and we'll start supporting local businesses more as much as we can.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, during the festivals, there's no parking at all.
I know.
I mean, it's not.
I know.
But then, this town has been like that for 15 years that I know of.
Yeah, even worse before.
Okay, any public comment, questions, any other, yes ma'am, please come forward.
I have business on Lot 4.
Could you please come up to the podium? Thank you.
My name's Linda Ginn. I have a business on Block 4, and you were right on with what you said. There are a lot of businesses going in and out, and Block 4 usually gets less of the traffic. We don't have any trash cans. I pick up trash every week. The city employees, I guess whoever is responsible for the weeds aren't getting done. I'm copying the empty buildings to try to make our block at least look halfway decent. I did talk to the city manager, and he is going to get me some trash cans. But I have pictures that I took last year about the fairs. Sometimes the fairs help, and sometimes they don't. And I have a wonderful suggestion for the parking. When I first opened my business, I was parking on the side. Well, then I noticed all the business owners were parking in front of their store. So on our block, there's very few parking spaces for customers.
Yeah.
And I had an idea that we could open up this side street and make it permit parking for merchants. Merchants can buy a sticker, and they have to park in designated. That way it opens up the main street for customers. I'm being lazy, but so is everybody else. 90% of the parking is taken up by the shop owners.
Can I comment on that?
And then you could make some revenue. I mean, don't gouge us, because business has been really slow this summer. But I wouldn't have a problem paying for a monthly merchant parking sticker. And I don't know who you'd get to enforce it, but I mean, we really should park somewhere besides in front of the main street.
Yep.
You don't know how many times that's been brought up.
Yeah.
And we've told all the bars, all the ice cream stores, and then I just noticed here that the guy that's got the 18th barrel or whatever it is, he's got a really neat green pickup. Sits out in front of his place.
Right.
Takes
But
up
we're
the
all doing that. If you could find some place close to our businesses where the merchants are designated park, I think that would be great, and I wouldn't mind paying a monthly parking stick. The other thing, I don't know if this is the time, but as long as I'm up here, by the time most people park down in the first 2 blocks. They try to. By the time they get down to our block, every single weekend, I get asked a half a dozen times, do you have a bathroom? Do you have a bathroom? I really wish the city could get one portable either between these 2 streets right here, because there's room, or across where that empty lot is, or just right around the corner. Because a lot of times they leave because they have small children or elderly, and they have to go to the bathroom, and they can't wait, so they don't shop in our shops like they would. They go home.
What block?
Bathroom in your shop?
Do I? No.
It's probably not
There's no bathroom in your shop.
Not accessible to customers.
It's probably not ADA.
My space, well, I have a bathroom. Yes, I have, but I cannot, no, none of the merchants on our block let them use it. There's
That's the problem. The merchants don't let them use it. The
Because
merchants park
it's
in the
not
street
safe,
in front of their store.
Chris. It's not
It's
safe.
not a safety issue, I'm sorry.
Yes, it is.
If
And you
it's
see
not-
how
if it's
small
not
the stores
ADA.
are, some of them.
Then they can get sued.
Yeah.
Is your shop's on across from the church?
No, I'm on 4th Street.
4th and what?
I'm on 4th Street, on the right-hand side. I have a blue empty building next to me, and then I have,
She's next to Bear Sidewalk.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 3rd Street.
That's 3rd Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, across the street from the church, from
Right.
Glad Tidings Church.
Right.
Yeah, well, right around the corner from you, there's a public restroom on 4th and McCollum at
you
the
mean
ball
at the
field.
ballpark?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we tell
It's a
them.
block away. On the other
really
issue,
wanna
you had with regards to merchant parking and so forth, it's a good opportunity for me to say this, that we're talking, and I think we're going to talk tonight about, again, the San Juan Bautista Merchants Association, San Juan Committee, the business group in San Juan that is dedicated towards improving the business's revenues and success. I think that parking issue is a perfect thing for that group to take up.
Right.
And come up with some recommendations. What you guys kind of come up with your own plans on what you think you could do.
Okay.
And kind of regulate yourselves. And then whatever you come up with as a group, if you bring that to the council and say, hey, we met, we talked about it, this is what we think would really improve things as far as, merchants parking in front of their shops and all of that stuff. Could you help us with some kind of a permit structure or something like that? That would be a lot easier for us to tackle.
Okay.
But if this business organization wants to be relevant, purposeful, intentional, and successful, and help the success of our small businesses, it's to take up causes exactly like that.
Okay, the San Juan Committee doesn't really represent the merchants from what I see. The merchants had a co-op, but it disbanded. They don't work together. I wish they would, but they don't.
Well, that's one of the issues we're dealing with, and
Okay.
I think the future is going to be brighter on that issue.
Great, I appreciate it. Next time I'll bring my pictures.
All right, good deal. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Salinas. To Mr. DeVries' question with regards to a survey, Christina Chavez-Wyatt from Farmhouse Communications, she did a survey last summer. I think you guys should reach out to her because I believe that was one of the questions on the survey.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Moving on then. Items 5. Let's see. If anyone objects, I'd like to move item E forward and tackle that one. That's the RFP for waste management franchise agreement. Okay, why don't we do that? We have a proposal or a presentation.
Yes, Kevin McCarthy is here this evening.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Kevin McCarthy at CSG Consultants. We provide interim staffing services and technical support to the county regional integrated waste management agency. That's not a long enough name, I don't know what it is. The item before you tonight is really the end of one step in a process and the beginning of another. And that process was really to go through and decide, hey, we have a contract with a current service provider, Ecology. Do we want to bid that contract out? And so we've gone through a process where this council, the board of supervisors, and Hollister all have voted to say we would like to go to a competitive RFP process. So that then started the process of trying to figure out, what do we put in an RFP, and more importantly, what does a new franchise agreement look like? So we've gone through the process of drafting a franchise agreement. There are a number of significant improvements in it. I think the public will be happy with. The scope of services for the public and businesses has changed, or we're proposing to change it. It includes things like including yard waste collection in your standard service, no longer subscription-based. It includes having free bulky item collection twice a year in the contract. That's standard everywhere you go, Morgan Hill, Gilroy, Monterey. It's just a standard feature in other communities. greatly expanded community recycling. So parks, public facilities, street cans, there are some public recycling containers in town, but they were purchased through a grant, they're beat up. We don't get a lot of recycling in public spaces, so that will be improved. And then a real big issue, there's a lack of business recycling. There's some efforts being made, but maybe a higher standard for that. So the item tonight before you is to approve the release of an RFP to begin a competitive procurement process. We've given you a summary of the RFP attached to the staff report. We've given you a summary of the franchise agreement. The full documents are probably in total 300 to 400 pages, and I'm happy to answer any specific questions about that. A couple things to point out. Your current contract is structured in a way that the three member agencies, so Salem Batista, the county, and Hollister, you all have separate garbage rates. That's going to continue. There's not going to be any mixing and matching of garbage rates. You're going to have your own standardized rates for service. We've done a rate survey with surrounding counties, and you have some of the best rates around, so it's a good value for the services that you have. That's not going to change. The contract's going to have cost containment provisions, meaning the contract will be tied to a CPI adjustment process. It won't be any kind of a cost-plus contract. And then all of the existing service standards in the community, when the garbage trucks go out on the street, what time they can serve business, all of the things that are in the current contract we've carried over. These documents that are before you have gone through an ad hoc committee that included your city manager, Councilmember Bach was at one of the meetings. So it's already been vetted by a group of elected officials. So I feel pretty confident we've gotten things close enough. But one assurance for you is we go through this RFP process, we provide the folks that are going to bid on the services a draft contract. So when you see an attached contract, this isn't the final contract. This is really, you have to put a contract out for the service providers to bid on. Those companies will give us feedback, and then ultimately, when we come back to you, we're going to give you a final negotiated contract. You're going to have a couple more looks at it, I guess is the point. So I don't want you to feel like you have all of this information and it's not going to come back to you. We will come back as we initiate this process with a draft recommendation. Your city manager will be involved in that process. You'll have a chance to listen to all of the companies that are providing proposals, hear their presentation on their proposals, hear about why they think they're a good fit for the community. There's complete fairness in this process. I get questions about these as to what does it mean for the college as the incumbent. They have the same sort of right and opportunity to win the new contract as anybody else. So there's no rating or anything in the RFP process towards the incumbent. It truly is a competitive process. So with that, I can take any questions.
Tom? Yeah, I was going to wonder, I don't see anything here about universal waste, and that would mostly pertain to business recycling. So the universal, do you know about universal waste?
You know about universal hazardous waste? Universal waste?
Universal hazardous waste.
The nice version of hazardous waste.
Well, but it's not, it's regulated under a different set of regulations. The DOT doesn't get involved.
Yeah.
You don't need a special permit. Yes. I'm kind of an expert on it, so.
Okay.
I'm kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I used to be.
I used to want to run electronic scrap recycling companies.
Okay. Okay, so, but anyway, so things like batteries, and particularly the 4 and 8 foot fluorescent tubes, are the things I'm thinking about. We need to have a way to make it convenient for businesses to recycle those items.
The current programs that we have in the county is there's a monthly HHW event for household and small quantity generators. There's nothing in this particular contract that addresses large quantity generators, so I'm not sure if...
Well, I wasn't thinking large quantity generators, because your universal waste takes you out of those categories. Universal waste is just waste generated by anybody. It includes batteries, lights, mercury switches, believe it or not, and a couple other items. But the main item I'm concerned about is fluorescent tubes and CFLs. And it needs to be convenient. I mean, when you go to the the John Smith landfill, if you're going from San Juan, it takes you almost all day. It's just a trip. You know, it takes. If you leave at 9:30 in the morning, you're not getting back until 1. So it's not really convenient from San Juan. You got to go all the way through Hollister, and it's just got to wait in line.
There are, not CFL specifically, but household batteries can be recycled through the curbside recycling.
Yeah, I know that, yeah.
Used oil filters. Maybe we can address that. The county has a contract with a universal waste provider that services these monthly events. I think, as you know, the challenge is it is so expensive to provide that service.
It is.
And so I'm more than happy to, if you've got ideas for how to address that.
I don't, because the wholesale rate to tear down the wholesale rate for alkaline batteries is about $5 a pound. You know, so they're expensive to recycle to begin with. You know, and you know, other types of batteries, lithiums are like $12 a pound. So you're right, it's very expensive. But the tubes, there's a couple of vendors in the Bay Area that will take tubes. AERC is one of them. Okay. I mean, they don't run household. Well, anyway.
Yeah. So the contract for universal waste at these events is coming up. So that's something we can look into, see if there's ways to expand the fluorescent tube recycling.
Okay. Anything else, Sean?
No, I just noticed that, like Recology, you put your used batteries in a plastic bag and put it on top of the can, and they take it, and the fluorescent tubes are the same thing, except that I think they have to have a green end on them or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think.
And I've never had a.
Yeah, we don't. Looking at a representative from Ecology, we don't take the
tubes.
There are some programs that take the CFLs. You know, frankly, that's not something that was recommended in the contract. I'm a little concerned about this getting busted and issues around that.
Yeah, because they have mercury inside them. So then it does become a hazardous waste.
And the other thing is Recology is always taking the oil and the oil filters.
That's going to continue.
Yeah, I was just noted with some curiosity. According to your milestones critical path, by July of 2018, we'll have a new garbage company. It takes a year to switch at garbage companies.
Yes, and there's a little
with all the bureaucracy and government rigmarole.
So there is very likely going to be a short-term extension if Recology is not chosen. If Recology is chosen, you could work within the existing contract for a temporary basis. If anybody else comes into town, you're absolutely correct. They're going to have to set up a corporation yard. That's going to take time. They're going to have to buy a new truck. So we already have drafted a short-term amendment. We've discussed that with Recology. Obviously, they don't want a short-term amendment because they want to win the contract. But if they get into that situation, they're going to cooperate, and it'll be probably a 3 to 6 month extension.
After July 18th?
Because you're absolutely right.
Oh, so that's the earliest it could be.
That is the earliest it could be.
Most likely we're looking at Christmas of next year.
If we could do it in the fall, we'd prefer to do that.
Oh, that's incredible. One last thing, the yard waste pickup you talked about. So is that like San Jose where you just put your clippings and stuff right on the street?
No, right now you can subscribe to one of those green cards, so everybody would get a green card of different sizes.
Oh.
You would put it in the card.
In a can, yeah, because a lot of towns you just put it out on the curb on the day. Okay, thanks.
The resolution
Any public comment or questions? Mr. Hopper.
Just one, Mr. Mayor. I remember when this contract was negotiated years ago and subsequently renewed, one of the big issues, which actually was something that Councilor Freeman brought up, was that the recycling of hazardous waste was all going to take place out of John Smith, and the company at that time said that they would alternate it between this end of the county and that end of the county. And to his point, I think that's really should be included as part of this agreement. They should alternate those months or dates back and forth because it is a tremendous hassle to get out there and for just paint and things like that. We should have that resource here in town. I think it could be easily set up at the city yard, similar to John Smith, where you drive in one way and drive out the other way. So I'd ask you to consider that. Thank you.
Good idea. You're going to increase the amount of stuff you could get.
Right, exactly.
A lot of people just dump it illegally.
Yeah.
Instead of...
That was the other point. A lot of people just throw this stuff in their trash can.
Yeah.
They don't want to go out there.
Okay. Any other public comment? Anyone else from the council? Any questions, comments? We have a resolution for us. Anyone?
Make a motion to approve the resolution as drafted.
Okay, we need to read it.
I make a motion that we adopt resolution number 2.017-XX, resolution of the City of San Juan Bautista approving the joint request for proposal, RFP, and new franchise agreement.
Resolution 27.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Trish?
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman?
Yes.
Councilmember DeVries?
Yes.
Vice Mayor West?
Yes.
Mayor Martirana? All members of the council being present, the motion is
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. We're going to take a 5 minutes. It's going to be over 50 break. It's over 50. Very good. So action items, 5A, consider use of Abbey Park T-ball area for a temporary dog park. I think we have a staff report here.
Pretty short, so this has been talked about at the last couple of meetings, but Councilmember DeVries proposed using the Abbey Park T-ball area for a temporary dog park. The City Council at the last meeting requested that city staff reach out to local organizations that use Abbey Park to determine if and or how much they use the T-ball area. I'm not going to go in the background here of the project, but we did reach out. We received feedback from several organizations. Only one written response that I included here, which was the players will use that as a warm-up area before their game. Otherwise, we do not use the T-ball field for games. And that was Tina Garza with the Junior Giants program.
Tina Garza is with the Hollister
softball.
Junior Giants.
Well, I'm sorry, but she's actually with the Parks and Rec in Hollister, is she not?
Yeah, and does adult women's softball or something too. She's involved with a lot, I think, so.
Yeah, and she kind of runs the Junior Giants programs for Hollister.
For Hollister, right.
And well, includes our
Chauncey runs it here in town.
Well, I think he's the head of it for Hollister too, but she kind of runs the administrative part.
Rachel's back there, she can tell you.
She's looking at me.
Tina's the director of City Rec for Hollister. And then they just, out of the kindness of their heart, they brought him to San Juan.
Yeah.
And Anthony doesn't run it, he's just one of the coaches.
Got it, thank you.
And then I think Trish reached out to a few other people. I think she can give you a little summary of what she heard
Kim
back.
Marquez, Hollister Rec Department said that used that T-ball area in the past, they would have to spend some money to fix it up if they wanted to use it again. And they heard that there's a proposal to make it a dog park. They didn't seem to make a difference to them. And then Abram Guy-Con, who used to have a team called Next Level, and will be bringing Hollister Taboo, which is, I think, girls, for just practice a couple nights a week that's not having to be used for it.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, the feedback, I spoke to Anthony Ponce, and he told me that the condition of it precluded use for games, that they would be interested in using it, but would need some undetermined improvements. I have no idea what the scope of that is. So, anyway. Okay. So, do you want to speak on this? Or do you want to...
Well, the only thing I was going to say in response to the comment from the Junior Giants is sometimes they warm up over there. Infrequently, I would add. But there's the whole rest of the park beyond the outfield to warm up. This is just a tiny little corner that happens to be fenced off. So, and again, I just want to reiterate the point that this is kind of temporary kind of dog park until Bob Quaid and others get or the Parks Committee gets a greater dog park done. The reason I suggested it is it's not used, it's already fenced, and it'd be very easy to just do it. And if we ever get Little League back again and a T-ball division again, then stop using it as a dog park. All you have to do is take the poop bag things out, and okay, now it's a T-ball field again. There's very little involved to convert it or to reconvert it back, so it seemed like a no-brainer.
Anything from the council?
Yeah, I'd rather see us spend the $2,970 on the Washington Street and get that started. Either fence in that easement into that property or something, but to, we don't have a whole lot of money. $3 grand would probably get that thing started. That's just mine.
Okay. John?
At one time, I probably would agree with Tony, but I'm thinking it would be better just to, I think to do that up there, it would just take probably a better part of a year, so I think we should just go with the temporary dog park.
Okay. Jim,
I agree with Tony. That's what we got. We have other things that we have to spend money on.
Okay. Roger, what sort, do we have, what's in our park fund at this point?
In the reserve, probably about $13,000.
Okay. Okay. Do we need, sorry.
We will be getting quite a bit more money from impact fees when these subdivisions.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's where we will start to see accumulation of revenue where we can do something on the Washington Street Park.
Well, how long would it take us to move on the Washington Street Park? That's the real question now, or one of the real questions.
Well, like any park development, it comes in stages and access and facilities and then the irrigation systems involved.
So it's at least a year away.
The master plan will dictate how you're going to develop it.
It's at least a year away then.
I'm going to open it up for public comment.
Rachel Ponce?
I understand that, in seeing the ballpark, that section of the T-ball section is not being used. But I think, kind of think about the perception of this. The kids in San Juan have very little to do. And they are having to climb over the fence at the school to use the basketball courts. They're becoming unruly and have to be chased out of a Rooney Park. And now they're taking this little piece that may or may not be used all the time, and they're taking that away. So the perception is, to me, and I'm sure to a lot of people that care about kids and the kids in our community, they're not really being supported. And I think that should be something to think about. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments?
Yes, Jolene Cosio?
Jolene Cosio, 181 Main Street. I'm a little bit ambivalent about it. I have a dog. I'd love to see a dog park. I think the location on Washington is a whole heck of a lot better for a dog park, and I don't quite understand why we need to hurry and have a little tiny dog park for little tiny dogs. Certainly not going to be any use to my dog. My dog go over the fence. A lot of dogs would. And there might be a problem with dogs coming in over the fence because we have stray dogs and some of them are quite large. So you might be in there playing with your little dog and some big dog comes jumping over the fence and there's a problem. Yeah, I don't know what the city liability is. I assume that you'll have to put up some kind of signs that says the city bears no liability, et cetera, et cetera. I'd love to see a dog park, small, large, whatever. I can see old chihuahuas running around in there and small dogs and stuff that can't get over the fence. But I just heard a figure of $2,000 and some odd dollars for a little tiny temporary dog park. We have so many more important things in the city, and one of them is developing the park off, between Lang and Washington for a lot of things. But it seems like pretty quickly you could put a dog park at the very far end of it. Our patron just uses gate to go out to it. If it was at that far end. I don't know, it just makes so much more sense to me to concentrate on getting a good dog park than to use that little tiny section. But that might be my opinion because I have a large dog and it wouldn't do me any good.
Good evening, council members. Elia Salinas. I am so against this dog park, not because I don't like dogs, but this is for the kids, and property was donated for the kids. I know Mr. DeVries, it would be much easier for him to go across the street from his house to personally use it for his dogs, and he's really been pushing for this, and I totally understand, but I believe that the funds could go to something else. The park is for the kids, and I would ask a question to City Attorney Deborah Hall. A question is that I believe that Mr. DeVries should recuse himself from the vote on this issue, and I'll leave it at that.
Where do you live, by the way?
San Bernardino County.
Hi, Jackie Marcelakis. I'll make it quick and sweet. I support Mrs. Ponce there. I think this sends a bad message to our children. They have very little now, and I don't like the mixed use of dogs and humans. I think it should remain ballpark. Thank you.
One more.
Good thing we're not doing a nuclear power plant.
207th Street. I don't care if it's a dog park or a baseball park. Let's use the park. If $2,700 isn't that much money, can we put something in there for the kids to do? Can we come up with a T-ball team, a city rec activity for that amount of money? But let's use the park. Let's just not water it and leave it vacant.
Okay, any further from the council? Any other comments, questions? I think, I hate to say this, but my inclination is to wait for some feedback from our group to the Parks for the plan.
The Parks Commission?
Yeah, I hate to say that, but that's my inclination.
That's fine.
I go back and forth because I don't see it being used. I agree with you in that regard, and after speaking to Anthony, he didn't have a feeling about it one way or the other in terms of using it as a T-ball field. But with the amount of money we are probably going to be bringing in from the development fees, impact fees, there's a very real prospect of us being able to develop that Lang Street. And I think, spending our efforts on a broader, bigger picture makes more sense at this point.
Can make a motion to table this until a future date.
Second. In particular, just an add-on to that is, in this year's budget, you put some money in for a red rider. And the red rider, and the Park and Recreation has a wealth of grant proposals and stuff, and that would be the seed money to get that thing going.
So, motion to table this, sorry, Dan, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to provide a response, a rebuttal. That woman was right. I do live across the street from the ballpark, and I work across the street from the ballpark, and I have for 20-something years, and I think nobody observes what goes on in that ballpark more than I do. And I'll also say that I built that T-ball area. I did that. There was no T-ball area. I got Earthbound Farm to build a fence and everything like I've already told you, and it's not being used. As regards to dog park, it's not just for dogs to the exclusion of kids, and to Mrs. Ponce's point, I wish little kids used that. I wish they did. They don't. Another thing is that the big field is a dog park already. I'll take pictures and I'll text them to you every time I see 3-4 people over there with 8 dogs. It's like they do meet and greets there with dogs in the big field. Well, that's not a good idea, because then the little San Jose Giants, the little Giants guys are running around in center field stepping in dog poop because there's no bags. It's not organized in any way. The last thing I'll say is that if a city establishes a dog park, you get on dog park apps, and people who are dog aficionados will pull off the freeway to stop at the dog park, and then they'll have lunch at Hardeen's or go shopping or Donia's or go to the different stores in town. It's a revenue generator. It's a way to attract people to our town. And it's not being used. It's an unused asset. As regards the bigger park on Lang Street or near Washington, yeah, obviously, but that's at least a year out. And what's the budget for that park going to be? There's a lot that's going to go into that process. Whereas this just seemed like something we could do very easily right now with little to no money and reap a lot of benefit. So that's my response. But if you want to table it until the Parks Commission is formed and meets, that's fine. We'll see what they say.
Okay. I think we have motion second in favor
of tabling.
Okay. All Opposed? We're going to table that for our next meeting. Okay. Let's see, consider cannabis consultant contract for political strategy. Gomez, we have a staff report.
We do. At your last meeting, City Council considered a proposal for consulting services on cannabis policy from Victor Gomez at Pinnacle Strategy. At the end of the meeting, or the end of that item, City Council directed city staff to solicit a contract from Pinnacle Strategy for consulting services on cannabis policy so that you could take action on that at this meeting if you so chose. The two main things that the council wanted to be included in that contract were that the term of the agreement should be 9 months rather than the original, I think, 6 months that was proposed. And second, that the contract total should not exceed a total of $9,000. In addition to that,
I think we were looking for more. Those were terms that were.
Which is not, those are the two.
We were actually looking for work product.
Yeah. I meant in the contract that was being brought back, those were the two main things, like numeric values that you wanted to have included. And then in addition to that, speaking with the city attorney after we received the contract, she wanted to make sure that the contract contained language about the city being able to terminate the contract after a reasonable amount of notice. So city staff went through and examined the contract that was submitted by Victor Gomez and found that the contract contained all three of those required elements. The not to exceed contract total can be found in Article 2, which states that the contract total shall not exceed a total of $9,000 over the term of the contract as outlined in Article 3. The term of the agreement is listed as September 1st, 2017 and shall terminate on May 31st, 2018. That's option A. Or B, upon termination of this agreement in accordance with this Article 3. Article 3 also contains language giving both the city and the consultant the option of terminating the agreement with or without cause by giving written notice 30 days in advance of the date of termination, and the option to terminate the agreement for cause immediately and with written notice to consultant upon consultant's material breach of this agreement. City staff recommends that City Council direct City Manager to enter into the contract after discussion, obviously, with Pinnacle Strategy for consulting services.
I want to make sure they have the right resolution, sole source language.
Sure.
I actually don't have it.
With the what language?
We added the finding. I changed the resolution on this, and the right one didn't get added to the packet, so I just wanted to make sure that you had the right resolution that 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right.
The 8th finding has a why this is a sole source agreement.
And it's longer than 2 lines. So if yours only has 2 lines, I can go print the other one for you.
Where should be what we
The resolution?
Where on the resolution?
The only place that has a number, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
And it should be more than 2 lines?
Yeah, yes. She added language to it, and I don't think I made it in the packet, so let me go get that for you guys.
Okay, so we can discuss this while you're pulling up that information.
I would just make the comment that the findings are there to make this a sole source contract based on the fact this is a professional services contract, so it isn't something that you go out for an RFP or an you can do an RFQ. You don't have to. The typical way to do it is to maybe call 3 people that do it and get bids. But in this case, because Victor Gomez has done these nexus studies before for San Benito County, for Hollister, and because he has special services that he knows what's going on in this county, that's why Matt's going back to get the findings so that you can award this on a sole source instead of getting 3 different prices.
So, back to the council. Any questions, comments, concerns? John? Tony,
I met with Victor last week, and I just emphasized, and he basically, I guess, agreed with me that what I really wanted to do was protect Sandoval. Okay, whether we have dispensaries or manufacturing or grows, but we need to protect San Juan. And I have people talk about the tremendous amount of money and all that has nothing to, as far as I'm concerned, has nothing to do with it. I don't want to see San Juan damaged in any way.
John, do you have any?
I don't think anyone wants to see San Juan damaged, but if we can discreetly have a manufacturing plant or a cultivation warehouse or something, and bring in considerable amount of money, then maybe we can have more police protection, so the Valero station doesn't get trashed.
Dan?
Yeah, no comments.
Jim?
I agree with Tony. I have my own bias, but I'd like to see a report and really know more about it than just what I think is right.
This process, we've been looking at sort of the cannabis question, the cannabis business for some time now. We've addressed this at a number of meetings, both at the planning commission level and at the council level, and I've spent a fair amount of time on it. I know staff has spent a lot of time. After some of the comments that were made on Facebook, I asked Matt to summarize the amount of time the staff has been spending, and it's in excess of 40 hours. And I think that it is a very complicated question. This issue covers many questions, and it's a very complicated web, and that we don't have the time as a council and as a staff to adequately address the issues that are involved in this.
That's right.
And that requires us to either take a very extended period of time to address it ourselves, or find outside help, a consultant or whatever that may be, to come in and assist us in developing an ordinance. And that's why I think this is the right way for us to go, because I think there's just an awful lot at stake. There's a lot happening at the legislative level, and we need to be aware of that and reacting to it and dealing with those changes in a very timely fashion, because there's a lot of, to your point, there's danger, potential danger here, and I think we're just at the low end of the sophistication spectrum, and we just need some help. So that's why I'm personally very much in favor of moving forward with this contract. And by the way, I think Victor represents a tremendous value. We're piggybacking on work that's being done elsewhere, so we're getting the benefit of a lot of work being done elsewhere at an extremely reduced cost. So that's why I think we were council, and I won't speak for everybody else, but I think that's the reason, one of the reasons we were very willing to move forward quickly with this proposal.
And now that you've said that, I have a segue to that. Yeah, not only piggybacking on work that's already been done, but I would add regional work that's been done, because whatever we do is going to be in the context of San Benito County. We all know how limited our city limits are, and any ordinance we pass will only be applicable within that line. Outside of that line is the county, so therefore there's going to be interplay and interaction between cities, what the city does and what the county does, and they need to be consistent. We need to kind of figure that all out, not only from a regulatory standpoint, but also from a taxation revenue standpoint as well. And the last thing I'd say, just to reiterate your point, which I agree with 1,000% in terms of the time and energy it takes to be even conversant on this topic, much less be in a position where you think you can make rules and regulations for a citizenry. It's such a moving target, with the emphasis on the keyword moving. I mean, this is a landscape that seems to change almost daily with new regulations and new this and bills and all this stuff that I for one don't have the time or the inclination to get to a level to where I would feel competent to write or even vote on some type of proposal and and therefore I think it absolutely calls out for a specialist.
Good. My concern is, all I've heard from is people who are advocates of one side or another. I don't know if I've ever heard, we may have been unbiased, but it all sounded like advocacy for or against. And so I'm really looking forward to finding out something that's real that we can hold on to, and that's why I'm looking forward to this study. We can't do it, as you pointed out. Okay.
By the way, did you hear what happened at the Hollister City Council meeting last night?
No.
I heard the wheels came off on this issue, on cannabis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? Council?
Oh, I got you there.
Do we have any public comment on this item? Yes, we do.
Good evening. I was at the Hollister City Council last night, so it was really interesting, and I would really like to see yourself as a council work together in whatever direction that you want to go, work together, because you're an example for the community and you're a leadership of our community, and other cities in this county are actively fighting themselves, and it's just bad form when you write an ordinance, you set expectations for people to comply, and then you're not in compliance with your own rules. So I would just, I'm very thankful that you are moving forward in this. I think it's really amazing the amount of time that I brought this up in April, and here we are in August, and that you are seeing that there is a patient base, there are people here who would greatly value from this industry being available to them locally. I would also like to say that you're very good at saying what you don't want. It's very, very simple, right? If you don't want corporations, you don't want big business, you want small-owned businesses, you want to put restrictions or keep it out of historic district, I would just encourage you to, in this instance, the way you're treating cannabis, treat it like anything else, right? Make sure that you're putting the right emphasis on the proper limitations and restrictions that you think would provide the most benefit to not only business owners, but also, residents, kids, and the general culture of our town, being a city of history, right? So I'm really appreciative that you're taking any movement forward at all. There's an opportunity right now to just kind of be dead in the water, and you're not doing that. You're moving forward, even if it's going to be at your own pace. And, as a resident, as a person who grew up here, and as someone who wants to open a business here, I need your support. And I have been working really well with city staff, and that has been great. I've been freely giving him information and updates on the Trailer Bill 94. He's made some he's doing a lot for you guys. He's done registration for the city of San Juan Bautista on the state level. I'm not even sure if the city of Hollister, who now has a dispensary, has done, right? So as far as you're concerned about not really knowing what you're doing or not really being educated, you guys are doing fantastic for the amount of size of staff and the budget that you have. I just want to be encouraging that you have very competent people and resources in your community. You have a planning commissioner, John Hopper, who is, he could write this for free for you. I just want to encourage you to utilize the resources in the community, because as far as cannabis is concerned in San Juan Bautista, you have it, and there has been a lot of public support. There's also been a lot of public concern, and I'm going to make myself available in any way that the council needs. If you have questions, or if you want to see business plans, or a tour of a property that I have in mind, I would be more than happy to work with you in any capacity. And if there is an ad hoc committee formed, I would feel really honored and just an ability to present at some time. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council. Do we have any further discussion?
We're not going to treat it like any other business.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the council?
I'm supportive of the contract with Victor. I don't think I stated that clearly, so I just like wanted you to know.
The motion?
No,
Okay, I'll make it. Make a motion to pass a resolution of the City Council of the City of San Juan Bautista approving an agreement between the City of San Juan Bautista and Pinnacle Strategy for consulting services on cannabis policy.
Second. Moved and seconded. Trish?
Councilmember Bach?
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman?
Yes.
Councilmember DeFreeze?
Yes.
Vice Mayor West?
Yes.
Mayor Martirana?
Aye.
All members of the council in favor, the motion is carried by the pass.
This whole thing?
Yep.
And that's resolution 28.
Get to work, Victor. You're hired.
Not till September 1st, right?
He can start it.
Okay. Had a conversation with an attorney this morning. And, no, I thought I was asking some simple questions. At the end of the conversation, she told me she was billing me. You knew I was billing you, didn't I? I said, no, I have no idea. Hope she's not watching. Okay, action item 5C, consider requested documents from someone committee and disbursement of funds. We should make them wait for the end.
Yeah.
Okay, so during this year's budget workshops, the question of funding for the San Juan Committee was the hot topic. I think it dominated every single meeting. And what 5 meetings worth of talking about it yielded was a list of documents that the City Council would like to receive from the San Juan Committee in order to disperse the funds that they has set aside at the budget at the end, which this year is a relatively large amount of $20,000. So the documents that they requested were, I think it was actually only 8, but we expanded it to 10 through the conversation since then, were a current membership list, official statement of nonprofit status, the organizing document, organization bylaws, list of current board of directors and officers, recent tax document, outreach plan, membership invitation letter, description of the method or plan used for notifying interested parties of the dates and times of San Juan Committee meetings, and a statement of any existing liability insurance. I worked with the San Juan Committee to get all these documents in, and we actually sent them out a few weeks ago before the packet even went out, so the council could have extra time to consider them. And so now we're bringing this back to council so they can discuss whether these adequately address the concerns that came up during the budget discussions, and then if they do address those concerns, figure out a way to disperse the funds to them this year. Last year, Roger did have a correction for this. Last year they received $6,000 from the city that was dispersed in quarterly payments of $1,500, so not the numbers that I had in the staff report set. And if we have a resolution, if you want to go ahead and move forward with this. So.
Have a resolution?
No.
Pardon me?
I don't recall.
I don't think there's one in, do we need a resolution?
Approved the budget and it was in the budget.
No, it's just, I think, a direction to the council of the manner in which you would like to disperse it, and then you would act accordingly. The budget is approved and there's some funds in there, how you want to disperse it.
Deborah, does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
Didn't we agree it was going to be quarterly disbursements?
Yeah, I think that's what they're suggesting, is that it would be a quarterly disbursement. And Al is nodding, that's a good sign. And smiling.
Probably falling asleep then.
So, a little background from my perspective, we were, we've been funding the committee for the last couple of years. We've been providing some funding, I should say, a small bit of funding to this committee over the last few years. This represents a fairly significant increase in that funding. And I certainly had reservations because I didn't know much about the sort of the background on the group and how it was constituted. So this really helped put this in context, and I really appreciate you guys pulling this together for us, providing us the information. And it was a little painful, but I think it will be valuable. I personally am very much in support of the organization. In fact, you guys got my check, I think. I joined. So I really appreciate your efforts. And I guess John, do you have any comments, questions, concerns?
No, I was pleased to see all the information. It seems to be in order, in shape. The membership list looks robust. So.
The other thing, how do we measure the results of, we're putting 20,000 in this, and I can't quite get a handle on...
I guess what we don't have in front of us for tonight is the plan for the breakdown of dollars. I don't know if you've got that, you guys have that handy that you can walk us through. We clearly went through it at length during the budget process, but we're all old guys, and
some of it was
fuzzy memory.
Some of us are older.
And some are significantly older.
Is that aimed at, are you aiming that at me?
Yeah. Well, not just you.
Maybe Bob or somebody can just kind of... I want to... My question... My question is... all right.
How are we going to measure results?
Yeah.
I think, Tony, you already had results earlier today when the Treasury report reported sales tax income was up in the city. I kind of relate that to some of the work the San Juan Committee's already done. Part of it, we branded San Juan Batista, and we did been doing some advertising. We advertise in the Wine and Travel magazine. We put the ABC segment together. So hopefully that's bringing more income into the city. How do you measure it? If our sales tax keeps going up, I think you can contribute some of it to what the work of the San Juan Committee, because that's what the San Juan Committee does. It promotes San Juan Batista. That's our main goal. I know someone earlier said, I don't know what you were talking about as far as not having this for San Juan Committee, but the San Juan Committee does support the businesses by trying to bring tourists into town and to spend their money. That's our whole purpose in life.
Just like I said...
Well, if sales tax revenue doesn't go up next year, then maybe don't give us as much money. But if it goes up, maybe we should get a percentage of the sales tax that goes up. Let me tell you this.
You seem to be equating yourself to Apple stock. I'd rather take the 20 grand and buy Apple stock.
Yeah, that might be a better deal, but the businesses may not like that.
No, you can understand my perspective. I want to see...
Tony, that's what I want to see too, because if sales tax revenue goes up, there's less, because I'm not a business owner, I don't get it, I gain nothing. The only way I gain is if that sales tax revenue goes up and you guys aren't increasing my water bills in the future, or putting a levy on me to increase the police staff in town.
Okay.
I'm trying to, the committee, and most of us are, not all of us, there's a few business owners, and we're getting more business owners involved in it as we go along. But we're citizens in town.
Your membership is primarily businesses.
Right.
The board is made up of...
Right, and we're getting some business owners on... I'm getting old.
A lot of that going on.
From the ice cream parlor. Margo has just started attending our meetings. And Al's daughter expressed interest in on the, Tammy expressed interest in being on the board too.
Fantastic.
So, but like I said, I'm just a citizen in town. Jill's just a citizen. Simon's a citizen. Beverly's just a citizen. And we're interested just in improving San Juan Bautista.
Right.
So there's no financial gain in it for us, except hopefully, we'll make San Juan better, and, maybe someday we will have a police force full-time, or a contracted police force full-time. That's our goal. And so I think that's the way you measure it, as long as, if sales tax revenue go up, we're doing something right.
Okay.
There will also be some visible products of this. I mean, they're talking about the billboard, you're talking about a website, and you can measure things with the website too. I mean, we can get Google Analytics going on that and actually figure out how many people are utilizing the walking tours, things like that. So there will be some, metrics that we can use later on, just not right at the beginning.
And that's our major expense this year, is our website upgrade. And we did get a grant from the Community Foundation in San Benito County, so we moved forward on that. We're in the process of getting our website updated. And we were talking about the other day, as far as, maybe we'll do some pop-up ads on our website when people are going into the website to try to, have business where they can advertise on our website, get business and get into individual businesses.
If you want to visit SanJuanBautista.com, just let me know. You can have it.
Okay.
You own SanJuanBautista.com?
The domain name.
Oh, there you go.
No, I'm satisfied, Bob. What I'm looking at is next year.
And we can do some of the, with our new website, we can, do some measurements on that. I'm not sure about as far, we do keep track of how many people come into the Ruffle Center daily. But I'm not sure if that's it. I think the big indication is that sales tax. If I was on the council, that's what I'd be interested in, is the revenue, is my investment paying off? Because that's where it's going to pay off for the city, is the sales tax revenue. If the occupancy tax revenue goes up, that's where it's paid off for the city.
Okay, exactly. Let's move the conversation forward.
Well, I was going to say, I think that sometimes it builds upon itself. The San Juan Committee facilitated the ABC film segment. It came off wonderfully, and then just a few months later, the Sacramento Bee did a big article in their travel section on coming to San Juan, and then just last week, another newspaper, I think it was San Francisco, but I'm not certain, did a similar article. Right. So those are things that build upon each other, and those articles were free. I mean, they didn't have to pay for it. Some writer wrote them, and
You did pay for the ABC.
Yeah, I know you did. I know you did.
Dan?
Yeah, thank you. Since I was one of those who was pretty ardent in the request to provide these documents and these things, Bob and Jill, I want to thank you for providing them. As the mayor indicated, they really look good. One thing I wanted to address, though, in terms of a paradigm, is that my hope for this business organization is that it would entail something more than just promotion. Not that, when I say just promotion, I don't mean to minimize the importance of promoting the town and advertising the town, but this organization can be used for a lot of things to, as you said, Bob, make San Juan better, or to improve San Juan. And you could be, for example, responsive to the needs of your members that are compiled on this impressive list. What are some of the needs of the 3rd Street merchants, and what are ideas that could be done to increase the visitor experience while they're here? Having promoted everyone to come here, what are they coming here to? And that can look like and take a lot of different forms and shapes. One of the things that was identified earlier tonight is parking. How important that is. So your organization, I think, could partner with the Planning Commission and with the City Council to come up with strategies for increased, better parking.
We're open to do that.
For example. Yeah.
And part of it is to get buy-in from the budgets.
This is Dan's time.
So again, just, everything can fall under the heading of being responsive to merchant needs, and being a catch basin and a collector of that information that you then can transmit to the city council. Because we oftentimes don't have the opportunity to do surveys or to get the kind of the collective conscious of a business organization. What we learn from business owners is oftentimes just anecdotal, and what they happen to mention us when we're in their store or passing by or something, and then we try to remember that. Sometimes we bring it back to the council, sometimes we don't. You, on the other hand, as a business organization, can collect all that, say, okay, well, what's our plan of attack here? What's our action? What can we do? And then come up with a resolution of your own. We think that we're going to ask the city council to do X, Y, Z, and then bring it, and then we can act on it and improve San Juan and make San Juan better. Streetscapes, landscaping. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can do to make downtown 3rd Street even better than it is right now. And I think that your organization presents a prime opportunity to achieve some of those goals.
Jim? I'm just impressed from the short time I've been aware of the committee to where it is now. It's a tremendous move. You guys really have stepped up the game, and I'm real proud of you. Your public comment.
Rachel Fonseca.
I'm really glad to see that the council is recognizing the San Juan Committee. The San Juan Committee started out with all of the good intentions of promoting San Juan, and they've been working very hard at it. And like all organizations, there's always that core group that do all the work. It may have a large membership, but it's always that small group that is willing to put themselves out there to do the work. And that's what the San Juan Committee has done. And I hope that everyone realizes that the objectives of the San Juan Committee are not going to be done overnight. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of cooperation. And I hope that the merchants do cooperate and are willing to work with the San Juan Committee, because the San Juan Committee has done over and above in reaching out to the merchants. And it's not been an easy thing, and I hope that you all realize that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda Jen.
Okay, first I wanted to compliment. I opened my business a year and a half ago. I did not know what the San Juan Committee was. I went to a couple merchant meetings, and the leadership was afraid of the San Juan Committee. So when they came to some of our meetings and they needed help, I volunteered, and they put on a fabulous Halloween party for all the kids. It is packed. And the other thing, as a business owner, that I send everybody to is the Welcome Center. That idea was one of the most fabulous ideas someone could come with. I just think that there's a disconnect between the public and the business owners of what they are. Maybe if there was a packet, when new merchants came into town, you guys could pass out a packet, but I found out just by little bits and pieces. So it really truly is not clear to all the merchants in town what San Juan Committee is doing. And how do you join, and who do you call? So I think if that could be gotten out a little better.
Guys getting this?
Then I think more members would join.
We've heard this before.
Lots of
There's just a little tiny disconnect. You guys would raise 4 days a week, maybe, the communication would work.
Yes, no. Go ahead, please.
No, that's it. I mean, I think they're doing a fabulous job. It's just not everybody understands what they are or hasn't gotten a packet to be asked to join or whatever. So there's just a small disconnect, but they're doing a great job of the things I've seen them do.
Thank you.
Just in response, I wanted to mention this, and this isn't a secret. I've said this to Bob Clay and to Jill. I think part of what you just heard from that business owner is the difficulty with the name San Juan Committee. It doesn't exactly lend itself to knowing what that organization, that committee for what. It could be a committee for Christmas trees. It could be a committee for lots of things. So let me just finish, and then absolutely. So I know Bob and I had a conversation a while ago about maybe doing like the San Juan Merchants, or the San Juan Downtown Association, the San Juan Business Association. So it's the San Juan Committee, DBA, San Juan Business Association, something that's really obvious to new businesses and others what exactly it is you do. I think that would help a lot.
I agree. So,
I don't like the San Juan Committee name. I think it's vague and ambiguous.
go ahead.
So, and we've talked about that at our board meetings on doing a DBA, because our nonprofit center San Juan Committee, Hard Chance, we're going to look at doing a DBA. We're having a mixer. August 30th, we're having a mixer. And membership meeting at Esther's. And so part of that, we're thinking of addressing that to the membership and maybe have a contest to come up with a name for because we can't agree upon a name ourselves. So.
If you guys just came up with a really super marketable name that was really obvious, it would do you such good.
Well, we haven't come up with that super obvious name yet.
So there's the Hollister Downtown Association, there's the Business Council, Business Association, it's just something along those lines. I know you want to stay away from San Juan Chamber of Commerce because
can't use that
because of PTSD. But by the same token,
come to our mixer. Come to our mixer and make your suggestion.
What is the mixer?
August 30th.
Julian Cosio, 181 Lang Street, and there's a little bit of history with that name because Richard Ponce was the main person that started this, as I'm sure most of you are aware, and certainly Rachel is aware because of all the time that he spent on it when he was alive. And it's interesting that when he passed away is when a lot of things seem to be starting to happen. And he was big on the Halloween thing that you talked about all the contributions and all that. So he was a big part of getting this started. But one thing that's come up at our strategic planning committee meetings, because Bev is a big part of the tourist, let's see, you call it the visitor bureau, right? The visitor center at the bakery. Yeah. And she's given us numbers. And Tony asked about, how do we measure the success? And sure, sales tax is one way, but the numbers that Bev has given us at those meetings are impressive. The amount of people that come into that visitor center and from all over the place, and that's also a way of measuring the success. Names, I think promoting yourself and getting out there, getting information about the upcoming mixer and visiting each business, and that is probably more important than worrying about the name change. It might be a little important, but I don't think that's the most important thing. If they want to be known as the San Juan Committee, as long as they're getting the information out there and getting visitors to our city, I think that's what counts.
Okay, thank you.
Sandra?
Sandra Lecce from the San Juan Committee, and we want to promote the businesses, but we're also much more. We incorporate the state park, the church, the outro. We're much more than that, and we want to support the business too, but we have so much more to offer also. And if we're trying to put everybody together, we're trying to get the merchants, when there's a celebration at the church or something, for them to participate with the opera. It's not just, the children's, it's wonderful, part of the children's events, but we're more than just businesses. We want to help the businesses, but we also want to reach out to the other things that are here in town, that makes San Juan. We have the park, the church, the opera, and I put my hand in each one of them. So we can kind of incorporate all of us together. So that's my only thing, because business are very important, but also these other things around us. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Elvis Palooza?
I believe the website is out already. Is it up yet? just something to add to the website for the city of San Juan Bautista, all these organizations. Maybe they can report to Matt once a week or once a month whenever they know their meetings are going to be coming up, so that he can post it up there, and that way people will be prepared and they know in advance when meetings are coming up. And I don't think it's relevant for the name as much as if you can get the information out there. And if people are going to complain, they need to come up to the podium with some kind of a solution or participate in trying to find a solution.
The new website is going to have two separate calendars right at the top, one for city events or like city meetings, and one for social events. So we could actually put the San Juan Committee on the city meetings. Good. Yeah. I want to point out that I'm attending these meetings now because you directed me to, and we've actually had really good conversations, and we actually covered parking. I planted that seed at the last meeting, so I think we're on the same wavelength about working on some of these important issues together and how, the role that they can play in sort of championing some of them and also just networking and building support amongst the business owners. So.
Great, thank you.
John Wilford?
Thank you. When I saw this item on the agenda tonight, I really wanted to come down here and provide some comment on this. All the things that I've heard here tonight just remind me of the many, many years that we've tried to promote tourism in this town and do things. Even when I served on the city council, I also had served like 11 years on the board of the Chamber of Commerce here, which we all know was a defunct organization, had its problems at the end, despite a lot of well-intended people. To Councilmember Bott's point, and I'm amazed you brought that up because that's what I was going to talk about tonight. When you're talking about giving this organization funds, it's hard to measure those results. We at one time, the Chamber of Commerce received $1,200 a month initially from the city coffers, and then it was increased to $1,650 something, some odd number. But the question always before our board from the city council was, how do we measure those results? And I think, my neighbor Bob Quaid identified the fact that you can measure it through TOC taxes, sales tax, and other measurable things. But at some point that just kind of, tops out. And quite frankly, it's hard to measure beyond that. I think that you have to look at, the spirit of the organization and what they're trying to achieve. What they're trying to achieve is bring synergism to businesses within the community. Even if they never really did anything beyond unite members in the community, of the business community, for other causes, like speaking for or against a marijuana initiative in the historic district, or the dog park, or many, many other things that will come before you as an elected body. That organization is very, very important. Yep. And I think Bob or somebody mentioned, or actually Matt mentioned it, there's other things that are just visual indicators of what they're doing. Monument signs, the old Chamber of Commerce, we printed these quick brochures and put them in every business, highway center, up and down Interstate 5. So, to Councilmember Bott's point, I think it's really, really hard to measure those results. But I think you have to, look at what you're spending your money on. And, this seems like an insignificant amount, even for a town that has no money, even though you spent $9,000 for a marijuana consultant. But I think that this would be a great investment, and I would encourage you to support these people. I haven't been involved in this organization. I just kind of looked at what they're doing. I have no vested interest other than, like Bob said, I'd really like my water bill to go down and my garbage bill to go down, and I'd like the police to come when I call 911, but I'd encourage you to support them. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more public comment? Yes. Okay. Anything further from the council?
I did not mean to start this 45-minute discussion. Yes, you know, the money's already there, and the whole purpose of this is how we're going to disperse it. I would like to move that we disperse it as we have before, quarterly, $5,000 per quarter, and like I say, you know, I didn't need a whole education on what the Sandalwood Committee was doing, because I already knew it. But,
I'll second motion.
But you got it in there.
Do we have it?
You got it anyway.
Okay, so we have a motion. And a second. Actually, I don't think we need a motion, right? We're directing staff.
yeah, we're just directing.
So the consensus,
Just a minute order.
amendment order.
All right, just a right now.
You direct them to disperse the money.
Okay, so we first, Jim, you're in favor?
Yes, I am.
Dan?
Yes.
Yes.
Tony, yes? And
Yes.
as am I. So we're unanimously directing staff to proceed with disbursement of those funds. Yes, thank you. Thank you, guys. I knew we'd get here.
Better not see you driving a
You
new
want to talk
Porsche.
about the results? It's not tonight. Okay, thank you, guys. Wow, so that takes us to D.
They've requested to pull this.
Yeah, I think this is not one where we're going to take that tonight, unless someone here objects. We're going to...
I object.
Do you?
Yeah.
Talk to them about something else?
You don't have your plans.
5D, okay.
I think it's a planning commission.
Pardon me?
I think it's a planning commission issue.
It is not.
Hopefully it is.
Well, so just for the backstory here, so the reason why it came to council is because it was this had been proposed on city property, which needs city council approval before it can even go to planning commission. So,
Yeah, it didn't have, there was no, the property owner had not agreed to allowing it, and that's us. So that's why it ended up, that's why it came here. But that is a bit of a moving target, so we're going to continue it for later. Okay, consider ordinance banning recreational marijuana sales, cultivation, and delivery.
Okay, well, as you know, you voted for a consultant to start looking at preparing an ordinance for the city related to marijuana facilities, but in the meantime, the state is going to start issuing licenses. They guesstimate it's going to be in January of 2018. So you need some kind of Band-Aid in place or a provisional ordinance to ban all these facilities until such time as you can prepare the ordinance, which has the vetting process and has the nexus studies, so you can reimburse staff and look at business taxes, etc. So this basically is just a ban that's going to be provisional. It'll be pulled when the new ordinance is approved, and it is a ban on all marijuana facilities, including places where marijuana products are produced. And it also prohibits cultivation beyond what's allowed by AMA, and it also prohibits deliveries. And what you're doing is making giving direction to the city council to look at this ordinance. You had it before you before, but you didn't comment on it, so you can make a recommendation to city council to planning commission to do the environmental review and to have a public hearing on this land use ordinance.
Okay.
Pretty straightforward.
Seems pretty straightforward. Okay. John, any comments?
No, just go for it.
Tony?
Just same thing.
Okay. I think we discussed this at length, I think, and that was it. Okay, so I'm going to open it up for public comment. Do we have any public comment?
No, I don't have any speaker cards on this.
Okay.
You want to know? No, that's not good.
Not really.
I just have a question because you included delivery.
Yes.
Which means you're restricting every patient that lives in this town from being able to receive medicine that were now required to go out of town, even if there were local delivery services like in Hollister. My other question is that if there are no licenses for recreational businesses, then why is there a ban in place if there are businesses that can't even operate, right? Why do you need to put a ban on non-operating businesses? It just seems like an erroneous action to me at this point. I can see maybe you feel like it's protecting you from something, protecting you from someone being able to open a recreational business or an adult use business in January if they were able to somehow get a license from the state. But as staff may be able to tell you, the process at the state level is that all your ordinances are going to be uploaded, and that since now you have a representative to the regulatory agency, any prospective business owner who would be wanting to open an adult use business would then notify the state would notify Matt, and then Matt would be able to say, oh no, we don't allow recreational, and then any application would not go through. You already have a ban for marijuana businesses, so I don't really understand the need to put in another ban. And I'm just concerned about patients' rights. I have not heard, not one of you talk about patients' rights or patients' rights to access, or the voters of San Benito County who have expressed their need and their interest. 57% approved Prop 64. So I would just, if you're representing your constituency, then listen to what they're saying. If they're saying that they want safe access, then isn't it your duty to represent that? You don't have to answer, I just have questions.
Well, I will. I'm going to take that first, and Deborah may have some additional comments. I think that we've made it fairly clear that this is intended as a placeholder until we're able to work through a more comprehensive ordinance that may or may not allow different types of businesses in town. I'm not sure where we'll end up after that process, but I think we've made it pretty clear through the course of these conversations, these discussions, these meetings, that this is intentionally a placeholder, simply to until we come up with something more comprehensive. Deborah, you may have something to add.
Just two things. At this point, you can look at marijuana deliveries and decide you don't want to direct Planning Commission to include marijuana deliveries in this ordinance. That's up to you tonight, and it'll be up to the Planning Commission as well. The second thing is this ordinance is intended to be prospective. It's not intended to apply right now because, as you say, adult use businesses cannot obtain licenses, but it's going to be relevant the day that the state starts issuing licenses, because then when they do call Matt, he'll be able to say, no, we don't allow those businesses now. And the problem with the zoning code is if something comes in, even if it's 2 days in between when the state started issuing licenses and when we don't have the ability to say, we're not doing that right now, then they're grandfathered in and they're in. We can't prohibit them after that. So that's what this ordinance guards against.
Okay, do we have any other public comment?
I didn't put in a card either, but just real quickly, I totally understand banning the sales and cultivation, and personally I think that's probably a good idea beyond personal use. But I am having a little trouble with the delivery idea. It seems like if someone was, really in need of that marijuana, I'd probably rather have them have it delivered to their home than have them drive out and get it. But if you ban sales, then how do they buy it if it's delivered to them? So it's kind of a legal thing. You didn't say that you could have deliveries, but if you can't have sales, I'm not quite sure how you have deliveries. But I would not be opposed to having deliveries. But I am in agreement with the ordinance of not having a place to sell it or cultivation.
Thank you. Jim, you had a comment?
Yeah, the mentioning the fact about medical need and that, I mean, I've got to get up and drive out of town to get my heart medicine, my cholesterol medicine, and all the other medicines I take. I don't see that as a disadvantage. I don't think that we're hurting anyone by not allowing that. And I think we ought to go with a complete ban at this point. It's a temporary, it's a placeholder. I'm looking forward to hearing from a consultant about what the facts are. Like I said, all I've heard is people who are adamant on one side or adamant on the other side. And I've never heard anybody, what I think is reasonable, discuss the issue, and I look forward to that.
You just heard it in the middle.
Jolene?
I don't have a card.
That's all right.
Station Street. So I am not passionate for or against. What I'm saying is I hear you approve for the contract with the consultant, Mr. Gomez, and it seems hasty that you would vote on a total ban at this point. Why not use the money that you've allocated for this consultant and say give 60 days, let him do his job and give you some expert opinion before you put a stamp of a total ban right now. It seems like a rush. And you've asked the citizens to approve this budgetary item. Let him do his work. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say that there's nothing about this has been rushed. We've been discussing this ban for months. This has been tabled while we went through months of meetings to hash over this issue. So, go ahead.
I agree with you. You had a workshop and you've been discussing this for quite some time. I'm sure it's no surprise to you, it shouldn't be a surprise to you, delivery services are coming to San Juan Bautista.
Yes.
Whether you like it or not. If you ban it, it's still going to happen. So I think you should allow it, take that revenue, whatever small tax revenue that would come to you, it's not going to hurt you and it's not going to hurt the patients that are using it. So if it's already coming here, regulate it and take the tax benefit. You can ban everything else, and like City Attorney Hall said, you must ban it both until, if I wanted to do it today, there is no ban. If I want to go today and open up shop, start up and not even get my business license, you're going to have to sue me to shut me down, and it's going to cost the city of San Juan Bautista a lot of money. So I agree, but maybe you should consider talking to your consultant. Maybe another 30 days is fine. I don't think anybody's going to open up shop in the next 30 days, but I think take advantage of the fact that you have Mr. Gomez to help you out. But I think more than anything is you should consider delivery, at least something like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more public comment?
So the speaker card, my apologies, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So just for clarification purposes, what Deborah outlined was absolutely right. You need to have some type of structure before adult licensing happens, which could potentially be January 1st of 2018. If you don't have anything, then the state could license without any local approval and allow a cannabis business to come into your jurisdiction without you having a say at all. So having the structure allows you the ability to go back will allow the state to communicate with your city and say, what is your local, what are you doing currently? It may be a ban right now. We may actually have an ordinance in place shortly thereafter. Right? And if that's the case, that's what your city staff is going to do. They're going to communicate with whoever's going to be doing the licensing, which currently under MCRSA, the new format, now medical and adult blended together, they actually still haven't established who's going to be doing the licensing. Once they establish that, then they will communicate with your city staff. Hey, we have a potential, we have an application, a potential permit. Where do you stand on this? Should we allow it? If the local jurisdiction does not allow a certain component of cannabis business, then your staff will let the state know, and the state will not allow the permit to go through. So just just wanted to clarify that. That's why it's important to have a position. I'm not saying this is the position you should have, but you do need to have a position. That way, when the state starts communicating, your staff knows exactly where you stand on the issue.
Thank you. A question. Can we carve out an exemption for delivery services in her ordinance or proposed ordinance?
That's up to you folks. Yeah, and you know, some of the speakers here today are absolutely correct. You're getting delivery services already. Hollister's getting them, and they currently don't allow them because they don't have any permits. Well, you kind of do. Dan made a point about the Hollister City Council the other day. It's a great opportunity for us to learn what not to do, because that probably wasn't the best course of action to take. But it's happening. It's happening in rural San Benito County. It's happening in two jurisdictions in San Benito County. It's happening. That's up to you. Now McCursa does have a new license, and that new license is a non-retail storefront dispensary delivery type of model, which will likely come into play.
And is there a legal mechanism, this might be for Deborah as much as you, to extract sales tax or any other taxes or any other fees out of the delivery service if they're making a delivery to an address within the city limits of San Juan?
Not currently. You don't have an ordinance that actually allows delivery.
No, but what I'm asking is it possible? I'm asking about possibilities, not...
So, how would you know?
Yeah, it's just
self-reporting. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and just to
interrupt for a moment, I think that this is all well and good, but we're now then talking about creating a licensing or allowance. We're creating an exception, and that's where we start running into problems. That's where this whole thing gets really complicated, and waiting until May, at the latest, hopefully, to have the work product from Victor, it just makes sense to me. I mean, if we create an exception here, we've now opened that door that we're all concerned about. And
but the door made a point. The door is open. People are delivering every day.
They are, but we're not approving it. Yeah, we haven't opened the door, John.
I know.
We're not creating ambiguity, and we're not creating a potential problem for ourselves. One of the reasons I think we need the absolute ban is that the legislative process has been a moving target. In the less than year and a half, there have been major changes to the legislation surrounding this and the licensing and so forth. And I mean, that's one of the reasons we're creating this ban, to be as broad as we can possibly make it, because manufacturing wasn't even an issue when we first passed our previous ban. That class of business wasn't even an issue. So I just think we're putting a placeholder in, we're doing it on a temporary basis so that we can get through the process of working out a really good ordinance for the city of San Juan Bautista. Rachel, please come forward.
Okay, 2 comments. I think that it is a better control of the meeting if we all do require speaker cards. That way we know if we're going to get a chance to talk or not. But anyway, I think that it's better for the city to just ban everything and then start all over than because there's so much unknown. And if there is delivery being made right now, if you do have an ordinance and there's deliveries being made with the ordinance, you have no way of monitoring or enforcing that to get the tax revenue from it. So why have it if you can't control it? So I think that the way you're going is banning everything and starting all over next year is the best way to go, so that way we don't have a little bit of this and that, and everybody knows exactly what's going on. And you have been talking about this since last year, so it's not something that's being rushed. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any additional public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council. Do you have anything else, gentlemen? No? Tony?
No, I like the way this reads right now, and the thing about delivery being already made here, if we allowed it, what are they gonna do, stop by City Hall here and pay their tax?
Yeah.
Come on, you know. So, if it's banned and they get caught at it, then the sheriff can deal with it.
Okay. So, do you need a vote from us, direction from us?
Just direction to the planning commission to hear the ban as written and to, for Matt to do the environmental review and have the city, the planning commission pass that, and then the city council, I believe, will be the final authority on this ordinance.
So it goes to them for recommendation to us, is that the process here? Because it's a land use ordinance? Because it's a land use ordinance?
Land use ordinance, right.
Okay, thank you. Wow. Okay, so with consensus that we're going to move this to the, pass this to the...
I have no problem. I hate to be so blunt about it, but I want their money, okay?
I gotcha. The sooner we get Victor rolling, the sooner we get that out. Okay.
Fine with me.
Okay.
Send it to the planning commission.
Yes, okay. The staff is so directed. Thank you. Okay. G, authorization to purchase portable generators.
Make a motion, we buy portable generators. What's next, age?
Do we,
This is just an item that's in the budget to put allocations on it. And I want to do that. Right now, City Hall does not have any emergency power. And we put the money in the budget for a 30 kW generator that will facilitate electrical power for the fire department as well as the city staff. This building is, in the event of a disaster, a command center for the council as well as the staff and the...
Okay.
I think that's the purpose behind it. I just outlined in the staff report other needs and everything, but this is the top priority.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
You did get, Roger, you did get a generator for the new well?
Yes, yeah. That's for the new well to run that building fire. That's being paid out of the water fees.
Okay. So, no questions, comments for everybody. This is a budget item, we've discussed it. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I think we're ready to move forward. Dan, did you have or do we need a motion? What do we need from us? There's no resolution.
Direction to authorize the staff to go out and receive quotes for
You are so directed. Thank you.
Moving on, H.
Consider yourself directed. Consider resolution authorizing the mayor to sign a multi-agency resolution of support for the Pinnacles Gateway Partners. Is everybody familiar with Pinnacle Gateway Partners?
Yeah, I think the mayor and Jill worked on this the most, so you guys might want to, I put together some things from a staff report from the documents I received from Jill, but I haven't really worked on this project. None of staff have, so.
Yes, I think hopefully everybody read it.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
I think this is a no-brainer. Really, the money was already allocated in the $20,000. Yeah, the money that's referred to in here, the expense that's referred to has already been allocated in the funds that were given to the Senate committee. They've already committed the dollars to this. So there's no fiscal impact. There's nothing that longer term we're not committed to any other funds. If they want more, they can come back. It's just a show of support and allowing all the municipalities to show that they're working together to support the project. For grant writing purposes and so forth. Any questions for council? No? Okay, any public comment? Okay, I think, so we do have a resolution.
I'd like to introduce a resolution of the City Council of the City of San Juan Bautista authorizing the mayor to sign a multi-agency resolution of support for the Pinnacles Gateway Partners.
I'll second it. Thank you. Trish?
Councilmember Bach?
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman?
Yes.
Councilmember DeVries?
Yes.
Vice Mayor West?
Yes.
Mayor Montrone?
Aye.
All members of the council being present, the motion stated by the mayor passes unanimously. That's resolution 29.
Okay, thank you. 5I, consider priority list of road repairs for funding under SB 1.
Well, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, after the last meeting, I passed out a map that kind of shows it, and I've identified what I felt were legitimate projects that fall under that Road Repair and Accountability Act under SB 1. And basically, I distributed to you to get your input of what were some of the higher priorities. I felt that we're getting the plans done and specifications for the Colony Street reconstruction right now. Then we'll go from 4th Street to San Antonio, that would be the first phase. And that's why I started off with the top priority, but the other ones are up to the City Council in their direction. And then we will initiate the estimate of cost and the estimate of timeframes there. And then we had a couple meetings with Todd to show the useful life narrative.
Anybody got a ticket book? Anybody got a ticket book?
Okay, so what are you looking for from us, Roger?
Between now and I would say the next 2 weeks, you need to get together with the staff and give us direction on the descriptions that I've outlined, and so we can start preparing more detail. There's 23 that I've outlined, and some of them are more important than others. We just got, I got an email today from Mrs. Carol, and she called upon our attention that 3rd Street between Tuolumne and McConaughey Street is in bad shape and should be one of the priorities.
Yeah, 3rd Street's in bad shape all the way down.
Yeah.
But you gotta tear the whole street up because the crown is higher than the curbs. Yeah.
And besides that, it's a concrete.
How far down is the concrete?
It's an 8-inch slab, 20 feet wide.
How much? He's asking how much.
How far under the asphalt is it?
Oh, the asphalt that's been overlaid, I think there's about 4.5 inches of asphalt in there.
So there's no way to re-overlay it or do it again, like they did last time?
It's like San Juan grade, it's 2 strips of concrete, that's what the road used to be.
You can grind and bring it down and then put a petrol mat on it and then put another asphalt to make it smooth, but eventually the concrete joints move, it's inevitable, and that's where the cracks will occur and the dirt and siltation, and then you'll start getting the mini speed bumps that we have.
Alligator stripes.
Yeah.
Because she is right, it is the street that everyone sees, and it is the one that needs to repair the worst. It just sounds like it's the hardest to do, though. That's the problem.
That was project number 9 that I had on your list. Approximately 31,000 square feet.
It's kind of like cobblestones at this point.
Yeah.
3rd Street.
Well, I always think of it as a kind of an exercise, so you first on the curb, trying to open your door. But the whole thing's got to be taken out. And so doing the street is reasonable, but when you gotta, to prepare it, and then when you tear it all out, you gotta put all the water lines and sewer lines down in there, so it's a really big project. It's like Fourth Street.
My binder didn't have anything on for I.
Got a secondary, that's your spot.
I think Councilmember Freeman pointed out, I think it was the day after the packet went out, that we were all of a sudden on this timeline, so that's why we included it as a supplement afterwards and amended, revised the agenda.
No matter how you cut it, you gotta do all printed roads.
No, I printed it out.
Yeah, so are these the priorities, 1 through 12?
No, I just listed them chronologically as they came up and started to,
So, generally speaking, I would defer to your, my inclination would be to defer to your assessment of the prioritization. I don't know how everybody else feels about it.
That would be my opinion. I mean, Roger knows what to do with roads. I mean, he fixes the roads that you can stop, because some of them you can put the overlay on and stop the deterioration. So others, they're gone.
Is that what they call chip seal?
Or chip seal, yeah. It's like Monterey Street down there. It's rough, but that street's never going to, it's not going to get any worse.
There's several layers, but there's a cap seal, which is solely motionless sand, and there's a chip seal with the tack coat and then chips, and we don't like to put those in, I want to say urbanized areas, because as the traffic goes on there, then those chips get into the gutter and kick up, and then there's a buckhorn asphalt, and then there's just the asphalt overlay.
Because this might be the one thing our constituents will remember the most.
Yeah.
At a workshop, we're bringing out everyone who would prioritize whatever's in front of their house.
I think actually, very soon, or fairly soon after moving to town, my moving to town, about 5 years ago, there was a meeting that, there were a series of meetings talking about this infrastructure. I remember Jolene being there, and surprisingly, there was about 2 persons, myself and, it just didn't, we got very little public input. Surprising, I was surprised.
Sometime in the past, we sat down and we made up a list. And what surprises me is I thought we had 5th Street between Mission and Franklin as number 1 because we had to replace that water line under there too.
And that is in your budget.
Yeah,
right. Bear in mind this is projects, we have $300,000 to $400,000 in our RTP funds, and we're going to be doing overlays and stuff like that. This is SB1 road and accountability funding that we could qualify for. We're going to have quite a bit of money. So bear in mind is that these are, the more shovel-ready we can have it, the better off we are.
Yeah. So what's the ask here? I don't understand that part.
Yeah, that's what I'm troubled by.
It was an opportunity to give your priorities if you felt strongly about some of these now.
As a staff, they could know.
Yeah. So we can do it here and now, or we can provide feedback in the next 2 weeks, you said. Okay.
Like via email or something?
Feel free to email us, both Matt or I, and...
Okay, but you don't necessarily need a consensus from both sides to an action plan.
And you need to make a decision on the list within the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, because I have to start preparing detailed engineering estimates and time of completion, and then that useful life analysis.
I would just... It just seems to me that in an ideal world, you would come up with I think all of us would defer to you guys on your prioritization, and then you'd come up with the list, put it on the agenda for the next meeting, and say, this is what we're going to do, unless someone else feels strongly otherwise. And then maybe even the public could say, no, we think number 3 should be number 1, or maybe a council member has an opinion on the priority list, but otherwise I'm comfortable deferring to staff. But do you have enough time to do it that way? Oh. Why don't we do that then? Just defer to them to come up with the list, put the list on the agenda.
There's two levels of improvements that there. One, you have some fairly good streets that have been constructed 20 years ago, and you want to make sure that you can preserve those so that they don't further deteriorate. And that's the cap seals. And then there is the ones that just out and out, you need to completely dig it up and then replace it with new base and the asphalt.
So with we're looking for you, but that's just part of your staff report.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like with that in mind, you could make a recommendation. The council, this is what we think you should do, and then give the public an opportunity to weigh in, and then we're done.
Yeah, everybody comfortable with that?
Yeah. Okay. We know exactly what we can do here.
Can you get some, Roger, you're going to kill me for this, rough estimate ballpark, so we kind of can look at this list and say, over the next 5 years, we're going to have to spend $5 million or whatever.
Oh, yeah, I can come up with estimates that on the current market, I think, yes.
Current construction costs, yeah.
Just give us a ballpark as to what, like I know we've been promising the people on that little short section of 5th Street for years, and they got a 2-inch water line that's half full of rust and...
Well, but that's already covered in the budget.
Well, yeah, because we figured out...
Will not be covered here. That's already budgeted in our fiscal year budget.
Oh, yeah, right, okay, yeah.
Is not going to show up.
Okay.
And bear in mind this is that you guys gave the staff the direction. We had analyzed a lot of the buildings, and we have a capital reserve, for some of the buildings and equipment, but we've never looked at the water and the sewer and the roads. And those are investments that we have to make and start planning for the operating them.
Which is why, Bob, water rates are never going to go down. Go slow. Keep it from going up.
No, we might have to wait.
Okay, so you have direction. Any comments, any public comment? You don't have to, Bob.
No, I would make a pitch for the road in front of my house, no.
You got one of the new...
Not in front of my house, but have you seen the road down at the end of Lang Street up there?
Absolutely.
I don't know why that's deteriorating so bad in front of what John Hopper's doing out there in front of his house. I don't know, that's terrible.
It has nothing to do with John Hopper. It has to do with the hill behind you.
Oh, the water
and the water that's coming in.
Oh, yeah.
It's absolutely on the radar.
Yeah, and then actually going up Stevens Drive there too.
Oh, yes.
And I do notice that because I took the U-turn there, that one there, so. It was my...
It's a legal return.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, goodness.
I know that everybody wants 3rd Street to be fixed, but I live on 4th Street, and a few years ago, they did 4th Street, and it was very inconvenient, very dusty, and that would take a big toll on the businesses.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you guys could do that without affecting the businesses, and I think that's something that the business owners need to take into account.
Frankly, I don't think we're in any danger of getting to that project.
And so you're
given the scope of the dollars. Yeah, so, okay. So I think that covers it. Right. 5J, consider approval of memorandum of agreement between the County of San Benito and San Benito County cities regarding credit guarantee for Monterey Bay Community Power.
Just to kind of summarize it.
Before you start, this was added to the agenda after the agenda was published. So you have to have a vote of at least 4 of you to put this on the agenda tonight based on the need to take immediate action and the fact that this came to staff's attention after the agenda was posted. So I need the city manager to kind of explain, why that is. But then I need you to take a vote and have at least 4 of you to vote to put it on the agenda.
I make a motion to add it to the agenda.
Second.
The city manager needs to...
We need the
Rationale.
the finding or some description of why it's immediately required.
Right, but the finding is it came in to staff after the agenda was posted, and it needs immediate action. I mean, what more do we need to know?
Why don't, doesn't
Need an
require...
explanation.
Okay. So we have a motion. Who seconded?
I did.
Someone seconded? Okay, Trish?
No, I mean...
Dan made the motion. Dan and Tony. Tony seconded the motion to add it to the agenda.
Councilmember Box?
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman?
Yes.
Councilmember DeCree?
Yes.
Vice Mayor West?
Yes.
Mayor Martirana?
Aye.
All members of the council being present, the motion is stated by the maker passes unanimously.
Okay. So, staff report.
Yes, the staff report, basically, the San Benito County has provided the necessary guarantees for this to move forward. Each county has set up the funds already. Now, each city, and the city of Hollister as well as San Juan, has to enter an agreement with the county of San Benito to set aside and guarantee their funding as part of the $545,000 tab to, and this is not a commitment, I mean, it's a commitment for funds. It's not where you have to pay that fee. It's a pledge or a guarantee that it will be there. And once in
the case of a default.
In case of a default, yeah.
So in simple words, at the present time, we do not have to write a check.
Right. And the expectation is that we will.
But if we do, John will write it.
I'll write it. Yeah. Out of your account.
Okay.
It seemed like when I went to these meetings, the other ones that have done it, the other counties or whatever, and there's never been a default, or it's worked well.
Wasn't there previously a discussion about some disparity that existed between us and Hollister in terms of the percentages that we were being asked to put up?
Yes.
And how did that get resolved?
It's split 50-50.
50-50 with Hollister?
Well,
there was that
understanding that it's covered in the JPA, that it basically calls out what the splits are, and that's what's described in this in the documentation.
And our share is the same as the city of Hollister.
Why is that?
Okay, because we have one seat and it's shared between the two cities. Okay.
How is the arrangement?
And the 50-50 is just nothing more than sharing this seat equally. I had prepared a staff report based on population, based on the budget, and based on the
showing the disparity
and everything, and it varied anywhere from what was it, 90-10 to 95-5.
But because it's based on the seats and the power, then it's 50-50 as opposed to 90% of the bond would be Hollister, 10% would be ours?
You'd have to have your representatives get into negotiations with the city of Hollister's and obviously they have more economic pockets than the city of San Juan.
So in other words, all things being said, that you're comfortable with 50-50?
Well, not always. Not always.
No, my understanding of it is that it's spelled out and that it's not really we talked about negotiation, but it's spelled out in the JPA.
Our disagreement is strictly with the county because the county already set the guarantees up.
So the county has to set up a guarantee with the special fund that's dedicated to a certain bank account over in Santa Cruz, because that's where the headquarters of the JPA are at. And if, you know, something did happen, the county would have to pay first, and then the county would come after us in Hollister for our share.
50% each.
Well, 50% of our receipt cost, yes.
Yeah, well, 50% of the amount that they'd make the call on. I get it. That's the best we can do, I guess, huh?
Any other questions about this, John, no?
Yeah.
Okay, any public comment? No? Any public comment on this item? Okay,
do I need to make a motion?
So this is approval of a memorandum. So what's the process here for approval of a memorandum?
Would be a simple motion to approve the memorandum of agreement and authorize the mayor to sign.
I move that we approve a memorandum of agreement between the County of San Benito and San Benito County cities, which would include San Juan Bautista, regarding credit guarantee from Monterey Bay Community Power.
Second that.
Okay.
Councilmember Bach?
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman?
Yes.
Councilmember DeVries?
Yes.
Vice Mayor West?
Yes.
Mayor Martirano? All members of the council being present, the motion is stated by the name of the president unanimously.
Okay, do the hard part.
Discussion items. 6A, hiring of city manager. I would say we don't really have a report, other than perhaps saying we have, I think, 9 applicants thus far.
I was going to say 10, but yeah, I'll trust your math better than mine.
I think we're at 9.
Okay, we have 9 applicants, and we're just sorting through them.
And is that ad still in Western City's publication and website?
It came out in this week's magazine, which came out last week, or this month's magazine.
It will not be in September.
So are you guys calling it at the end of August?
Yeah, that was a period.
So, Mr. Mayor, just as a point of order, we have 2 gentlemen on 6D that have been waiting there, and if we could, as we discussed other items there, I think it would only be a mistake. I'm sure they don't want to hear about it.
Hear us talking.
Okay, moving on. Should have moved those guys up. Yes.
I think they got enjoyment of it.
We're going to push it down on the price. Okay. Anything further on the city manager?
No.
Okay. So we'll move on to item 6D, initiate use of community center.
Okay. And I have...
Good evening, council, mayor, and staff. My name is Brett Brankwitz. I'm here with my business partner, Charlie Franks. We're the architects for the mission. We're very excited about trying to make this project a reality. And one of the things we realized immediately is we need a temporary worship space while we renovate the church. We just can't have people in there when we're drilling 30-foot deep holes in the columns to reinforce the church. So we looked around town, and we opened doors and looked through windows while doing everything legally, of course, and found that your city hall, your city community building, almost fits perfectly for our needs. And we met with Roger about a month ago, approached you. He said, we should probably talk to you folks about this. So we generated a floor plan basically showing how this might work if we were to move the church pews into the building. We need to accommodate about 300 people in there. And it looks like we can achieve about 294 people in the community hall. So we don't have an exact timetable for you folks on this.
You mean in terms of when you would start, or how long it would go on for?
Well, these are very rough estimates. We're hoping to start the project in the spring of 2018, okay? We're probably going to need to shut down the church for about 9 months. We say 6 to 9 months. So we'd really be interested in looking at kind of locking up, leasing or renting out the space for that duration, especially if we're going to be moving pews in there, which is kind of a big undertaking.
So this would be a situation where you would convert the community center into a place of worship for 9 months exclusively. In other words, you can't move the pews aside and have a quinceañera in there.
That's correct.
On a Saturday. Okay.
Or a wedding or something like that.
Okay.
Exactly.
So,
However, just as a point of correction, we made sure that the senior citizens in the kitchen there, that is still open so that they can still have their Thursday meeting there.
That part would still be available to them?
Yes, right, yeah.
Okay.
Good point.
That's the senior citizen.
I think the church's primary use will be on Saturday and Sunday. Yeah.
How many services would take place on Saturdays and Sundays?
I think right now there's one 5 p.m. service on Saturday, and I believe there's 3 on Sunday. It might get reformatted a little bit depending on what happens when we, close down the church. You might get, we don't know what's going to happen with the population.
And you're an architect for the renovation?
That's right.
So can I make my proposition now? And this is the first that the council's heard of it either, but I have an idea. Okay. So for that many people, that many services at that community center, all your parishioners are going to need parking. Right across the street is a great place for parking. We call it the bonfire lot. If you would put gravel or some type of surfacing substance on that lot for your parishioners for your Saturday and Sunday services, query whether the Monterey Diocesan Office would allow the city to use it for city parking the rest of the week and during the weekend, as long as it didn't interfere. Can you run that up the flagpole?
Run that up the flagpole. We were thinking about having parking at the old restaurant.
Yeah.
As well as the open field. So I will definitely bring that to their attention.
I think what Dan's getting, in part, what this demonstrates is our wish to create more dialogue between the church hierarchy and the city. We really have not worked very well collaboratively together historically, and we really need to do that.
Right.
You heard a lot of conversation about the Salon Committee, the business organization in town. We need the committee, the church, the city to work together, and this is Dan's point about the parking is a prime opportunity for all of us, and we've
to work together.
And there's been not we just haven't been able to have a meaningful conversation to address the sort of opportunities that are presented to us. The church has a lot of assets, obviously, and that could benefit the community in general. And we just have not been able to open the door for, as I said, a meaningful conversation at any point in the past. And and I don't want to hold this as I'm not going to use this as, hostage.
Right.
Do that.
I'm not opposed to that, though.
I'm not opposed to that either. We really need to get further up the food chain and have some meaningful conversations about how we can collaborate. The closure of the church from 9 months is going to have a significant impact on the town. The tourists, the students, and I have been very fortunate and been able to travel a fair amount in Europe, and I'm thinking of last year going to Vienna, St. Stephen's Church, and being able to walk up a scaffolding to the apex of that dome. And, if there's an opportunity for us to be including people, watching the restoration, some portion of it, making it open to the...
I think that's a great idea. In past mission projects, we've done things like that, where we've made viewing platforms or stages where people, and it actually attracts attention from people that might not otherwise want to visit the mission or the city. It becomes an opportunity for them to learn to get some education about what's going on there.
Exactly.
So I think that's a great idea.
Well, and frankly, the timetable that's been described shocked me. I had no idea this was coming within 5 years.
Yeah.
And I know it's tentative.
Yeah, it's very tentative.
But my gosh.
And these are our highest hopes, is to get going in spring. We may be coming back to you and say we need another year to do what we need to do, but
there's so much opportunity to do the outreach to the school groups. Jill and I have already spoken about this, making, maps for visitors, outreach, describing, so that we're not discouraging everyone from coming because the church is in restoration, but using it actually as a selling feature to bring in people.
And we
so
have
they can see
started
it.
conversations with
Good.
both Father and Bishop and the state park to put together
Okay, thank you.
So anyway, this was just an idea we wanted to bring forward to the powers that be and start the discussion and kind of get the wheels turning, the juices flowing.
Great.
And I'm hearing what you're saying. Very good, thank you.
Have you been in the community center?
Yes.
Have you tried to talk to your partner in the community center?
Yeah, the acoustics are not very good.
Yeah, do you think that there's a possibility, well, actually, to have a mass, so you're going to have to do something. It's just...
Roger, and we discussed that with Roger when we met a while back.
Because I could go along with this rental deal, especially if you put something up there that, and I will tell you this, the history of what they call the bonfire lot.
Yeah.
The lot across from the community center is, several years ago, we tried to start a parking, and we thought we had everybody on board, and then Monterey said, no. And I believe it was an insurance problem. I'm not sure, but I think that's what it was.
They've been having a lot of difficulties.
But there's workarounds for all of that, with indemnity insurance and all that. That's all doable.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. Thank you for your time.
Do you need anything from us at this point?
No, I think we just kind of wanted to get this.
So, if we have anybody object in general to this?
I'm very supportive. If we can get improvements in acoustics as part of the deal, I think it's a win-win for everybody.
I concur with Councilman Reese.
Yeah, and again, I'd be interested in the rental amount and opportunity cost, because we'd be losing that stream of income for 9 months, so I don't even know what the community center generates in terms of revenue to the city, but it would obviously have to be as good or better than what we're already getting. And then any improvements you could do acoustically, that would be long-lasting, that would remain after you go back to the Adobe. And then parking, as I said, would be great.
Yeah, so I think that those details can be further worked out as we get closer to that goal line, as it were. Okay,
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would point out that
Sorry we made you sit for hours there.
I saw you had blueprints. I'm like, what on here is a development? What here involves construction? I didn't know.
I have a public comment already.
Yes, he does.
So I'm not opposed to it, but I do have a concern. The community center is available. We do our Halloween party there at the community center.
Yeah.
So, and then a lot of people rent the community center because it's reasonably priced. Now, I'm not worried about the people from Hollister or Watsonville or Salinas, but the citizens of San Juan deserve to have a place available at a reasonable price. So, is the diocese willing to have the old cabinatories available for nonprofits to use at no charge? And are they willing to let local residents rent it at the same price that we're able to rent the community center? So those are my concerns.
That's a good idea.
Good point of question.
It's a really good idea.
That actually ties into what I was going to say too.
Probably get more use out of it.
That ties into what I was going to say too, because we've actually already started turning away, almost daily calls for people trying to reserve that after April. So just so you know, it's in really high demand and pretty much entirely booked between now and April, so.
The curation is?
Oh yeah. So while there's, that's why Chuck pointed out earlier, if you look through the warrant list, it's 700, 700, 700, 700. That's all those refunds for the cleaning deposit.
What are they renting it for, by the way? Quinceañeras?
Most of them. Oh yeah. Lots of quinceañeras.
I think we said parties.
It's big.
Sounds like we probably need to move this, try to get this moving forward.
That was my point, is that while there may not seem to be a rush, we are putting off a lot of people while we debate this, so.
And as you know, VFW is a site for overflow facilities.
For smaller groups, the VFW will work, for smaller.
Well, Casa Maria is beautiful.
Yes.
But I don't know what, I understood the rental fee was quite high.
We have to work out an accommodation.
Deborah, do you know Susan Mayer over at the Monterey Diocese and Tom Urban?
I've met Susan Mayer before, so.
Isn't it fair for me to think that any issues regarding insurance, indemnity, especially if there's some type of allowance for San Juan to use Casa Maria, catamatories, and issues that would also go along with that use, that you and her and Mr. Reardon could work those things out as between the city and the diocese?
Sure.
Yeah, so if you guys get pushback as like a knee-jerk reaction, I'm pretty confident that all those things could be figured out on any kind of a swap idea, or, the city using the parking lot with liability and all of those things. And I, as one vote, would vote in favor of our city attorney, Deborah Mall, actually going to the Monterey office and meeting with Susan, who I think is a lawyer too, right? Yeah. So have Deborah go meet with Susan and have them sit down and see if they can't work something out like that.
The only thing, I don't want to get us involved in renting out the Casa Maria or the VFW. That's not our...
I think the overall intent that I have felt is that there are facilities that the church has that we could benefit, and then we have something that the church could benefit from. And that's that cooperation.
Right.
We may have to take that building off the market though, because I believe Casa Maria is for sale right now, so.
Is it?
I've gotten inquiries, so.
It's listed?
I've gotten inquiries from realtors about that property, so.
Okay. Like a sweet house.
Give it to public comment. Okay, moving right along. City Park Master Plan, I don't have anything at this point, do you?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, you do? Sorry.
Big stuff.
My apologies. Take it away.
September 15th, Friday, 7 p.m., Vertigo Coffee Roasting. Kickoff meeting for the San Juan Parks Commission. Everybody's invited. Blast went out on Facebook today. Very well received. A lot of people already saying, I'll be there, I'll be there. Matt and I met about this, emailing back and forth, talking about it. Matt's going to be there on the 15th also, which is awesome. And Chairman Hopper of the Planning Commission has indicated interest in being involved. He's going to be there. So it could be really neat. And I think, you can share your view on it too, Matt, but my thought is just to get it presented off the ground, and then at that meeting come up with next steps.
Sounds great. What time was that?
7 o'clock. Friday the
15th.
Friday, September 15th, 7 o'clock, Vertigo. Yeah.
Okay.
Is Vertigo open at 7 p.m.?
Yep, 7 to 9 on Fridays only.
So is that going to go out on non-social media?
You want to come up and address that?
I don't do social media, so is it going out on non-social media?
Yes, the city will advertise it too.
Okay.
You're a social guy, you don't do
social media.
To be totally honest, Bob, to be totally honest, Matt and I we've been working on the dates and everything. We just finalized it today. Okay. So I just went on Facebook and put it out there now. Maybe Matt could do Mission Village Voice or something. But however, and to your members too, Bob, maybe you can put out a word as well, just get it publicized.
That'd be great.
I'll have Jill put it on Facebook.
Okay.
Can you send news to me because as you know, what's happening in San Juan is a closed group. I can't share from that group to San Juan, which is the CA.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, so that's kind of a one-way street there.
Okay.
So when you go there, it's definitely.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Good, okay. 6C. Impact fees, do you have anything at this point, John?
Jim and I met, and we discussed it a little bit, and I think our next step is we have to draw up a list of projects so we can justify the fees with a list of projects. Maybe even some of the roads could be some of those projects.
Introduce that next.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, good.
So Jim and I will meet again, and we'll talk about a list.
Any questions? Any public comment on that? Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, once again, thank you very much for your time. I'm going to ask a question. I don't know.
Yes,
So the impact fees that you are on the committee for, Mr. Freeman, Councilman Freeman, is that for going in the future?
Yes, it would be for in the future. We can't do things retroactively.
Okay, thank you.
I wish we could.
Yeah, right.
In 1979, we had a project.
Deborah would be really busy handling all those lawsuits.
Any questions? Okay, moving right along. Selection of volunteers on Philanthropy Day. I think that we're probably planting the seed, get everybody thinking about that, and probably funnel those through to Trish for something at our next meeting.
Is this Community Foundation's Philanthropy Day?
Yes.
Okay. And this would be someone that's nominated for or designated by the city of San Juan Bautista? Oh, okay. Nice.
Can I make a nomination right now?
I prefer that you wait. Is that all right?
Well, he's been waiting all this time. I'll get to you, Bob.
Okay. Anything from the public on that item? No. Okay. Moving right along. Available courses of action to address public nuisances at brewery and complex at the corner of 4th and Macomb Streets. A couple of other people have mentioned other locations. I guess I'm just unclear about the process for how we can address some of these issues with some of these properties, and I'd like to get a little bit of an overview from you.
Inside your municipal code, there are 3 chapters that we use exclusively, and that's property maintenance is one, dilapidated building is another, and then I'm going to say property management, deteriorating conditions around garbage and stuff like that.
Unsafe condition?
Unsanitary condition. And in there, the city council can direct the staff to write the letters and bring these people in front of the public, city council in a public hearing. This property should be maintained.
Okay. So that would be the process, and so they come before, we write it, and if they comply, if they take action, they move on. If not, what happens after that?
Well, after you...
If they fail, in our view, to comply, then...
That's something that I think we have to take a look at from the legal standpoint of where the city could move in and correct things and put a lien against the property.
Fine them. Do a continual violation on, $50 a day or something until it's brought into compliance.
State Water Board fines people who don't clean out your storm drains, and we're talking about $10,000 a day, so it's not like, it's not possible.
So is it something that we need to implement, or is it something that exists in our code today?
No, it's in our code. You have a citation process in your code.
And what about if we were to choose to perform work, and we then charge them, what's our recourse there?
You have to be very careful about making the proper findings to support what's a public nuisance or, stuff. Once you've made those findings, then you can go in and support finding and penalties and violations.
So what about, go ahead.
Well, it just depends what it is too, because you don't have a nuisance ordinance, you have nuisance kind of sprinkled throughout your code, so it depends on whether, like a sidewalk, if it's a sidewalk problem, I know you can go in and, repair it and put a lane.
We have a missing sidewalk on Franklin Street. We have a holding pond with no fence around it.
Yeah, I know.
The brewery property, we have fences that are intended to keep people out that have been damaged and are, I would consider them a danger to the public. We have concrete that was installed with metal pieces sticking up out of the ground that were not compliant with code and not compliant with the plans, so, they were illegally installed. We have light standards that are falling down and, in my view, constitute a danger to the public. Those are issues. We have the other property listed here. They are basically dumping all of their yard waste into the street and expecting the city to clean it up. Is that litter? Can we write them a ticket for litter?
Yes. Oh, my building?
Yes.
Oh, the tree leaves?
They're rounding all that stuff up, they're collecting it, and then they're piling it up in the street in front of the property in multiple piles. And laughing about it with the neighbors.
There it just says, I don't have to clean up my yard, I just sweep it in the street and let the city clean it up.
He's bragging about it to the neighbors, which is how it came to my attention. So, is that one where we can ticket them for littering?
And then there are properties that have overgrown vegetation that's varmint infested, and it gets to the point where you're there to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens.
Okay, so
you have to take some action.
So what do you need? You need basically some properties and some observations.
Any direction, and we'll go after.
Okay, well, those are three, the Franklin Street, which we've already talked about, and that person's not, they've just been made aware of it.
Yes.
As a new property owner.
And I fired the letter off.
Right, and then we've already communicated, so we'll see what the response is. But the other two properties, I think, they need action. They've been outstanding for a long time and need action.
The old Chalmer House out at the McElhenney Street entrance also is on my hit list, because that is absolutely dilapidated, dangerous, falling down. Sort of.
Yeah, but does that affect what fence around the house?
No, I don't believe so.
Oh, that is a danger then.
Yeah, and I know that some historic preservation people were fighting for it 10 years ago, but it looked a lot different 10 years ago, and now there's not a single window, door, the whole thing's leaning. I mean, it's
historic, and it'd be wonderful if somebody would fix it up, but in the meantime, it's really dangerous if some little kid goes in there. So
well, the property owner doesn't want it either, so,
a cyclone fence just around the structure to keep people out.
So I don't know if anybody else has any specific issues with these issues.
Well, there's also the metal shops behind Vertigo's on Mission Street, and then, of course, the big yellow thing on the corner of 4th and Alameda or whatever,
Big yellow thing.
Whatever it's called.
Pearson and Alameda.
The drug house.
The drug house.
Oh. So those are two other properties that need, those are really valuable properties in the city, and so I don't feel sorry for the person if he doesn't want to do it. He can sell it for a lot of money.
Yeah. Okay. So, anyone else? Anything else?
No, I think it sounds like we could come up with a pretty good list.
That's a perfect avenue for the Senate Chamber to get the motivation around to say, hey, that's a deterrent to our historical district and the beautification. And I think that's an avenue that has to be pushed to the property owners more rigorously.
Well, I agree, and I think I'm not sure that's their role. I think this is a compliance issue that falls to us. But I would encourage you guys to make input, have your members making input about problems that they're having with buildings and so forth that they may be tenants in. Anyway, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I once wrote a letter to one of the old town fathers that were here for 80, 100 years, and I asked him for his cooperation to make the city beautiful. And then the next day he was there, had that cleaning up, and I wrote him a thank you letter, and he was so proud. Bill Cagney.
Oh, yeah? Still there?
No, he was.
When did it learn, last year?
About 3 years ago.
Okay, any public comment on that item?
Yes, sir.
Here we go. Sure.
This will be my last pitch here. Anyway, I'm speaking public commentary to the last subject about the ordinances, and I just went to the city website, and it's pretty plain there that there's some really clear codes violations with several other properties. The one that I'm speaking to specifically is the one behind Vertigo. The property that butts up against it is my family home, and I feel that you're failing to recognize and respect the residents that own homes and live next to properties that are in direct violation of your code 5.8, which is property maintenance. You also have code health and safety codes. You have weed abatement. I can tell you that one particular piece of property with the warehouses behind Vertigo is probably in violation of about 3 or 4 different sections. Sure. And within that section, several of the codes. Just today, my husband killed 2 rats coming over from the warehouse, okay? That's been a family home for like 60 plus years. We've never had rats. I'm not saying that we didn't have mice, we had rats. Paid for an exterminator company to come out yesterday and give us an estimate. This has been an ongoing issue for at least 5 years. It didn't happen last year, didn't happen last week. The system that we have for the citizens to bring this to the attention, I think, is very detrimental and makes us bad neighbors because it's based on complaint-driven issue, how you bring it to the forefront. This is the second time I've had to talk about this, and now I'm being more direct because the rats are a huge issue. My parents are elderly. I'm an only child. I'm looking out for their welfare. And yes, their property values are going down as we speak. Okay? There's abandoned vehicles on there. There's people sleeping in there. And just like every other business, prospective business that comes before you to project or pitch their business plan, they have to go through certain guidelines and approvals. And has that been taking place with the warehouses? When I was a kid, those warehouses just stored potatoes, gunny sacks, farm equipment. Who knows what's in there now? So I urge you to use the tools you have before you. It's right here. Thank you.
Okay.
That one's already been sent an abatement letter, and we're already ready to summon them for nuisance.
Good.
For hearing. So that one's actually ahead of schedule and all the other ones.
So we need to do it then.
We've already done it. Nick and I already did a site visit. We've been contacted by family members. We know very well about that property.
One last comment, okay? Don't want to be nasty, but there are legal ramifications. The city's not taking care of the citizens, and there's been forewarning. I'm now here in public comment. There are legal ramifications, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thanks. Anything else from the council? Any other public comment?
And we're already at.
Moving right along. Okay. One more, gentlemen. Possible citation or infraction for cost of security patrols to secure open businesses. So I don't know if that's very clear from the description, but there are a number of businesses that are habitually being left unlocked and open at night. And the contracted security company is spending a great deal of time waiting, securing the building, waiting for a responsible party to respond and come and secure the building, thus taking them off of their patrol cycle. They contacted, I think they contacted probably the city manager, they contacted me as well, and asked about, how we can, if there was some mechanism that we could put into place to penalize the repeat offenders, basically. And so I think that would be the question from the staff or the attorney, if we could put something in place, if we're so inclined to do that. And I will say that one of the businesses, it has been as often as 3 times in 1 week.
Are these the businesses that came to us complaining about break-ins?
That one case, no. That particular business.
Okay, 30-some years ago, Gilroy had a ordinance or whatever, and I had a machine shop, Gilroy, and the alarm system malfunctioned and went off. And I got a bill from them for $100. I had to go down there, because, there were 2 cops there, and go down there and make sure that nobody was in the building, and it cost me $100.
Yes.
I think that, if you can't remember to lock your door, if you get a bill for $100, you're going to remember to lock it the next time. I don't know, do we need an ordinance or something like that?
I don't think we have an ordinance. You need an ordinance first, and then you need to delegate the authority to the patrol to enforce the ordinance, but I'm not sure, I've never heard of an ordinance like that, so I...
Well, a private company or...
No, just an ordinance requiring people to lock their doors.
They're not.
Yeah.
So if you have nuisance calls to the fire department, the police department, it's very common to have a fee. I manage retail stores all over the country, and in most of those cases have that apply.
So that's been really, like a 911 fee has been tossed out time and time and again.
It's not a 911 fee.
Right, but it's like a 911 fee, so I don't know, I've never heard of it.
Well, maybe we should tell our security patrol, if they find a door unlocked, just walk away.
Exactly.
And don't call the sheriff, or don't call anybody, just walk away.
Yeah.
And then one of these days they'll learn.
Absolutely. That would be I think that's the only alternative. If you have to leave their business unlocked all night long, well, then don't let them suffer the consequences.
You could document it in their report, so they...
Yeah, it's unlocked. Right.
You left your business unlocked, and it's the 3rd time this week. Good luck with that.
I think that the patrol officer should report it to Roger or Matt or whoever comes in the morning, so that Roger or Matt can relay the message to the store business owner, so they know that they were stupid and did something.
I think the only point in reporting information is just to cover our own backsides, so that we don't get, complaints from the public saying like, oh, we were vandalized or someone broke in. No, they didn't break in, you left the door wide open. So just if we had a record of that, otherwise I have no sympathy for someone that doesn't lock the door and gets broken into. Tough.
If that's the easiest solution, then as I would advise security to document it and leave it alone.
Right.
And make sure that you get the report, that you guys get the report.
Many of these business owners are old timers. Hey, we used to walk away, leave the front door unlocked, leave the keys in the car, but times have changed.
Or put a warning on the door is maybe the way to do it, so that they know. I don't know that I'd publish it, because then you do have liability if you put their business habitually open, then people are going to be checking. But, if somebody just put a citation or something under the door, or in the door because it's open.
So it sounds like there's not much interest in providing creating an infraction or anything. So I think we'll kick this back, maybe a conversation with JT, and we'll revisit this. And I'm not sure it needs to come back to us. Any public comment on this item?
Tony's civility is not an easy excuse either.
That's another excuse.
Well, I had a police officer tell me one time, if I could just arrest all these people for stupidity, the jails would be overcrowded. So.
Okay, comments, city council, John, anything to add this evening?
I'm trying to remember, but I don't want to make it go any longer. Yeah.
I think we beat it to death, I'm done.
Yeah, I think we did a good time. I have nothing to add. Oh, I do, I'm sorry. Ribbon cutting at 18th Barrel on Friday evening. I'm not... 6 o'clock. 6
Ribbon
p.m.
cutting at 6:18.
6:18. Ribbon cutting. Be there or be there. That's all I have to add. Roger, anything? Deborah Mall?
Yes.
Mall.
Not Deborah Mall.
Thank
you.
Okay.
Pacific Road was...
Do you have a motion? Motion to adjourn. Second, anyone?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.